Because you've got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been.
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
That's your knowing or mine.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on a Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 618th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. You can check us out every Sunday, 8 o'clock in the UK, 12 o'clock Pacific time in the United States. And for extra fun, action, and the Boxing Nutter Messenger group, you're going to have to check us out at patreon.com/Boxing Asylum. And we would love to have you. With me today, we have Justin, we have Dez. And what once upon a time was a joke is now a genuine question when we ask, what's next for Dave Allen? With Allen in that magical fifth round, just like the first fight, finding the shot, putting Fisher down, but this time keeping him down with an incredible little cleanup left hook. It was pretty, folks. It was pretty. And going flat down was Fisher as the towel flew in what was a fairly shocking moment for British boxing, and one I found rather enjoyable for some stupid reason. But Allen having to get through a lot. He seemed to be taking some hard shots from Fisher, despite walking forward. The referee, Marcus McDonald, just putting in another wonderful performance, basically just allowing Fisher to speed bag the balls of Dave Allen. Allen walking through pain, walking through thunder, walking through ball shots to take out little John Fisher. Dez, it was a fun performance. Dave Allen finally has a signature victory, obviously getting something on the back end of this one. He's done himself proud, and just going to show heavyweight boxing doesn't matter how they look on the scales. That doesn't always have anything at all to say with the outcome of a fight, Dez.
Yeah, that's true. I don't quite know if this says a bit more about British boxing, though, that two kids with very limited motor skills like Fisher and Allen can gain such publicity, such traction, and two kids fighting for, I think, pretty much an area belt can headline a card and create so much attention and go viral. There's so much to unpack with this one. Look, first thing I want to say is I didn't like the commentary last night. I think we'd have to start talking about commentators. Other than Sonny Edwards, I think the team at DAZN are awful. I think they're over sentimental. I think they're mawkish. I think they treat listening audience like we're a bunch of kids and we want to be told a story. We don't. Sonny Edwards couldn't really call a fight. He really knows how to pick the spots, knows when to keep quiet, and knows when to say and what to say. Good job, Sonny. But the rest of them, Barry Jones, I don't know what he's become. Adam Smith, you're done at this now. You've gone down a avenue that I just don't think that a boxing fan needs to listen to some of the narratives Adam Smith is spinning. And that's my take on the commentary team. I had to say something. I didn't like the game plan Johnny Fisher was given. And I wasn't sure after round 1 if they'd got this right. And by round 4, I knew they'd got it wrong. Now, I've got to hold my hands up here. I was given information that Johnny Fisher's training really hard out in Fuerteventura, which is a Canary Island just off Spain. He's a hot, warm weather training. He's running up at mountains. He's up early, training really hard. And I was led to believe that the first Allen fight was a wake-up call. Best thing that ever happened to him. Now, I don't know if Dave Allen is really laid back, or I don't know if he's just a great poker player. He bluffed me. He looked scruffy, unkempt, unwashed. He looked like something a cat dragged in at the press conferences and at the weigh-ins. He's always this guy that wants to have a laugh and a joke and be the class clown. And I didn't like it. This is not how you prepare for a career-defining fight, which is what this would have been for Dave Allen. You lose this one, Dave, there's the door. So going in, I felt Fisher prepared himself well, had a good team behind him, learned from the first one, and I was going to put it right. And I actually felt that a really good version of Johnny Fisher would turn up, and I wasn't quite sure what version of Dave Allen would turn up. He's let us down so many times. He's fallen short when he should have stepped up. And I never saw no change up until round 3 or 4. So I got it wrong with Dave Allen. I thought he made a mistake last night. I thought he got it wrong. I thought the team had let themselves down. But after the first round, it became apparent that someone in that Johnny Fisher team, and you've got to put this on Mark Tibbs, I don't know if they watched the Lennox Lewis and David Tua fight and thought, that's what Johnny's going to do. We're going to make this kid with very limited motor skills, who still hasn't really established his own identity as a fighter. We're going to take him literally 180 from what he's ever done. And I asked John, imagine Dave Allen's got an invisible circle around his feet and Johnny Fisher's got a circle around his feet. They must have said to Johnny Fisher, when Dave comes into your circle, step back and jab. So essentially, you're asking this huge guy who's not got an overly good gas tank, who can't fight going backwards. That's the phrase we used to use 15 years ago. He can't fight going backwards. You're asking that guy to fight going backwards and expend as much energy as he possibly can, keeping distance. That's called a reactive distance keeper. Well, what I would have done with Johnny Fisher was say, just plant your feet, hold centre ring, and when Dave comes into your circle, hit him with a jab. If he's still there, double the jab. And if he's still there, bring the right hand over. This fight can be won with straight shots. Keep Dave away by being proactive. They went for the alternative. And after round 3, anyone with any type of idea or knowledge about how these big guys operate could see that Fisher is gassing. Dave Allen knew he was gassing. Dave Allen was investing in the body. And he was having to go hard. He just kept touching him and touching him. And Johnny Fisher invited him because the style was, the approach was, let him walk onto me. Let him come into my space. Then as Dave was touching him to the body, Johnny's hands were coming down. So Dave was just touching him over the top. And although John was up 3-0 going into round 4, he was winning rounds, but he was losing the fight. And round 4 was a turning point for me. I think Dave got to him. I think Dave sensed this guy ain't got another 6 minutes in him. And he come out in round 5 and he looked brilliant. Now, I've got to be careful my type of language because I'm not here to put people down. But I didn't like the plan. I thought Johnny Fisher's team had ballsed that one up. They'd asked their kid to do something he couldn't do. And they made Dave Allen last night look like a prime Evander Holyfield. But Dave stepped up and Dave did it, and I'm really pleased for him. You ask me what's next for Dave Allen, I don't really know, because these are two kids at area level at best. Does Dave win a British title? I don't think he beats David Adelaide. I don't think he beats Fraser Clark. I don't think he beats Fabio Wardley. But he probably beats a Solid Akers. He might beat a Nick Webb. Yeah, they're the sort of fights he can win. Last night was it was an opportunity for Dave to say, that's the win I needed. That's what my career should be defined on. I stepped up, and the guy that showed me the door, I've now beaten his best ticket seller. And he should be really proud of himself, because not a lot of people fancied him last night. I think it tells us an awful lot about Johnny Fisher and where he's at. But I wouldn't get too carried away now, guys. I don't want to be that old curmudgeon that, pours water on it. I said this about Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. I think the occasion was probably better than the level. We enjoyed it. And I think last night was the same. We enjoyed the build-up. I don't listen to the dad. I've cut him off. And I don't listen to the promoter telling me he's a world-class prospect or commentator telling me he's a world-class puncher. I know a bit more than that. But it was two kids of a level. I liked the build-up. I thought it was an intriguing fight. I enjoyed the first one, and I enjoyed last night. Congratulations to Dave Allen. I'm really pleased for him. I'm really, really pleased for him. But I'm very disappointed for Johnny Fisher and the way they mapped that out last night. Questions have to be asked about that plan, the instructions he was given, and I'll be very surprised if you see Johnny Fisher with Mark Tibbs ever again.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty tough loss. I mean, that was ultimately pretty brutal. And I don't know. At the end of the day, Justin, I didn't see a fighter fighting with confidence in there. And if you're not confident, you're most likely not going to win the fight. It doesn't have the confidence, doesn't have the gas tank, not a particularly big puncher. It's at the end of the day, I think this is ultimately will show itself as a little more than a local rivalry that culminated on a pretty large stage for the occasion with two guys who neither one is tremendously talented, but they both have their place in the sport.
Well, I mean, I think Des made a point for a second, is that Allen was there to be taken. He wasn't in the best of shape. He was there. It's just Fisher is not good enough to do it. He just wasn't good enough to take. Anybody at a decent level would have took Allen out or really would have worked him over. Fisher just is not good enough to do that. He's just, I wasn't trying to be, I think you said I laid it on him last week. I wasn't trying to be harsh to Fisher. I was just telling the truth. He's not that good. He's a very limited guy who has a good following, and that's what's gotten him this far. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a place in the sport. He shouldn't be headlining shows just because him and his dad can talk some trash. Allen, you saw the overhand right. He landed it like in the first or second. You saw it land, and you were like, okay, that punch is what he did in the first fight. Allen landed a couple of those. So you kind of had a feeling that, and Fisher, like this, it was starting to take those a little bit more than he did. And then finally in the fifth round, you knew it was going to come. You knew he was going to hurt him when he got it, hit him again. Fisher Allen, that's the thing you got to be worried about just as well with Fisher is Allen's not a big puncher at all. And he has badly hurt him in the first fight, completely wiped him out in the second fight. That's not a good sign either. But Fisher, I know Des was talking about game plan. I don't know what game plan you could have used with Fisher he's not good enough to work a lot of game plans. He's so limited. He can't really do the basics well. He's not, I don't know. If you're a Fisher fan, if I were them, I would just go back to around the area he's from, keep fighting these 300-pound check guys or random guy, build him back up, get him 5 or 6 wins versus some random guys, get him some confidence, and then you can make money off of him again, because that's kind of where he's going to be. And Allen, I don't know. I kind of thought Fisher would win. but just because of the fact you can't trust Dave Allen at all. You don't know what he's going to do from fight to fight. And Allen actually looked in better shape the first fight. I don't think Allen went into this is not like, oh, Dave Allen turned the clock and he really got him. And this is just because Fisher is such a lower level than Allen. And that's pretty bad to say. But Allen's above Fisher's level. He showed that in the first fight. A out of shape Dave Allen still has better pedigree. He still has been with better guys. He still has better technique. And he's just better than Fisher. There's just no simple way to put it. We can sit here all day long and try to argue over what Fisher could have done differently. I don't know what he could have done differently. Allen's just better. And that is sad in itself for the Fisher family, but he's just better.
There's levels to this.
Yeah, there is. That's the bad thing about it is like Fisher is probably below Southern area because if Dave Allen is punishing you back to back, and we know what kind of Dave Allen this is not a motivated. This is just Dave Allen showing up, in my opinion, for the check. And hey, I'll get out there and talk some shit and win. Fisher, his best hope is get him on some low level cards. He'll still make some money. But I hope people kind of realize now that what Fisher is, and we're not going to see him. If we ever see him headline another fight, that would just be because he's won a few fights and they want to give an up and coming prospect they want to sell tickets to an up and coming prospect show, and he might bring some people there. But as far as Dave Allen, I mean, he could do whatever he wants to do. Dave Allen is a name over there, obviously. So they could put him in versus anybody they want to. I don't think, Dave Allen, he's not going to turn anything down. So whatever you want, if they say, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if they put him in with Atoma. That'll give Moses Atoma a name. And after beating Fisher, a lot of casuals are going to think that Dave Allen, that was a really good win. And Atoma, that'll look good. I mean, that'll look good knocking Dave Allen out. That fight to me makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you make that fight? Atoma would punish Allen. It'll give him a name. Why not? That fight makes sense to me. We don't need to see if you're gonna cash in on Dave Allen, you need to cash in now. And I would cash him in right now.
I'll let me come in there, Matty. Right.
Just hold on, stocking Dave Allen at an all-time high. People are buying, but if you ask me, it's time to sell.
That's what I'm saying. Sell him right now.
Right. So Dave Allen has done all that. Dave Allen did get chucked in against Luis Ortiz. Dave Allen did go and fight Tony Yoka. Dave Allen was chucked in against Dillian White. He's not going to do that again. Surely to Christ, he's learned his lesson from that. And I don't think the boxing public, would forgive Eddie Hearn if he'd done a deal with Frank Warren and said, you've got Dave Allen. We don't want to see that. That would be, no, we don't want to see that. And I don't think Dave would let that happen. Dave said last night explicitly, I'm a fighter of a level. But look, let's unpack a few things here, because there's someone in the chat sort of, there's levels to boxing and there's nuance to this. When people say Dave Allen's not much of a puncher and someone says, well, he's knocked out 19 or 24, of course, but it's to a level. Jimmy Sains last night went in for a Southern Area belt, 9-0, 9 KOs. But when you fight someone that isn't going to go over, you go to full 10. And that might be the story of the rest of Jimmy Sains' career now. It's the same with Nick Webb. He's won 18 fights, knocked out 14 of them. But he could just about win an area belt and has been stopped by Dave Allen. So there's levels to this. And what Justin said there was, Dave Allen's not much of a puncher, which he isn't. Anyone that punches back, Dave don't get near him. Same with Johnny Fisher. I think he went in last night at 10-0, 9 KOs. But I've seen Johnny Fisher. He's not a puncher. Of course, he can dig and he's solid. He's a heavyweight boxer. He goes in at 17 stone upwards. He can crack a bit. But in terms of heavyweight boxing, in terms of the landscape, and understand the nuance here, Johnny Fisher is not a puncher, nor is Dave Allen. Just because you've got stoppages on your record, don't mean you're a puncher. The heavyweight division is huge, and the levels go from where they start to the very, very top where Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk are operating at. And
Des, you just said it. You just said it. You just said it. They're level punchers. They're punchers
Correct.
at a level.
Well, and they're not big punchers so much as they have mass and they throw punches.
And also, Matty, it's where who the people the people they're knocking out. Who are they? What's their level? So we know that Dave Allen can crack, but he's not a puncher. Johnny Fisher's not a puncher. Nick Webb's not a puncher. You know, we know that, but they can punch. But in the terms of the levels we're talking about, where you've got to win British titles and Commonwealth titles and European titles and beyond, these guys are not punchers. So they can punch at a level. I'm just making that point because when Justin quite rightly said Dave Allen's not a puncher, someone in the chat said, well, I think he can punch. He can punch at a level. You've got to look a little bit beyond what you're seeing in front of you. So going back to Allen and Fisher, you asked a question. I don't quite know what Fisher could have done last night, right? So Justin, when you've got a kid with limited motor skills, who's not really got much of an identity, but you know what? You can punch to a level and you're pretty fit. It's like getting, he's an ex-rugby player. It could be an ex-doorman. It could be an ex-fireman. What you do, you keep him neat and tidy. You get him to hold centre ring and you just get him to get behind his jab. And remember and keep it simple. And the imaginary circle around your feet. When the guy comes into your circle, you throw the jab and you just discourage him from getting near you. And as the fight progresses, as you get into round 4 and 5, you start edging forward. You just edge forward and start walking him down. But the opposite happened last night. From the very word go, they must have said to Johnny Fisher, you're going to go on the back foot all night. Now, why would you want someone like Johnny Fisher, who we know isn't a puncher, especially when he's going backwards? He can't fight when he's going backwards. He's not got a gas tank. We've seen him gas out before. Whenever he's going backwards, his hands come down, his chin goes up. And when you touch him, and he has been touched a few times now by Dave Allen and Harry Armstrong, he does look wobbly and shaky, so he's vulnerable. Why would you overcomplicate this?
You're making a game.
And sorry, Justin, something you said there that was so true. And I know we sound like old curmudgeons on this show sometimes. He didn't have to beat a firecracker last night. It wasn't a Moses Atoma. It wasn't a David Adelaide. No disrespect. It was Dave Allen. And he made him look like a prime James Toney stroke Evander Holyfield because they got their plans so wrong. Now, last night was all about simplicity, not complexity. And they got it completely wrong. But on the plus side to that, we're all celebrating Dave Allen, and I like that. But this show's a boxing show. We know what we're looking at. And although sometimes we sound a little bit, begrudging or a little bit, we pour water on it. I'm pleased for Dave Allen. But we're on this show here, with the people listening to this show and the type of audience we have, we're not going to talk about Dave Allen winning British titles and fighting for European titles. We're not going to talk about Johnny Fisher coming back and having a trilogy. It doesn't work like that. What we saw last night, they're not them kids. That's the point I'm trying to make as well.
Yeah. It's just they were giving him the game plan of somebody that was just more skilled level than he was. Is I think is what you're saying. Yeah, that he just doesn't have that ability to do anything like that. And you're right, that's where they messed up. That's just not who he is. He doesn't have the talent to pull that off. And you're right, that's where they got it wrong. You can't put what's the saying? You can't put a square something in a round hole, whatever the hell, square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
And that's what they were trying. And I think that's what they were trying to do. And he can't. And that's just not him.
Can you see when you say to someone, you're correct. Of course you are. That's not him. But can you see when you say to someone like Johnny Fisher, you've got really limited motor skills. There's a low ceiling on your talent. No problem. We've seen really successful heavyweights with low motor skills, low talent at the ceiling. Why would you want that kid going backwards? Like I'm not saying march Dave Allen down. All I'm saying is just try and limit the movement here. Just hold the center ring. I mean, if you're going to be a bit of movement, step off to the side, step around, or if you have to go back, then get center ring again. But they expressively told Johnny Fisher, you're going to fight going backwards for this one. And I can see it. I can almost visualize it. They've had him running up mountains and up hills and running in the sun, thinking, if you can run 10K and 15K, if we can train you like a marathon runner, you're going to be good to go. Boxing don't work like that. It just doesn't work like that.
He should have been They should have been worried about. He needed to win this fight, and it didn't matter if he looked ugly or not. He just had to win the fight. You can look good and do all that fancy stuff after you practice it for a while. They didn't need that yesterday. He just needed to win. Who cares how bad you look? I think they were trying to go for a little flash too, and you didn't need that. He just needed to win, not go for. He didn't need to do anything else. But yeah, you're right. That's
the kind of fight. If you really wanted him to win the fight and you wanted to just fucking throw your hands up in the air and be like, it's not going to be pretty, but this is how it's done, you would have shown him a John Ruiz fight and said, this is how you have to fight.
I'd have fired my trainer.
I'd have fired my trainer. The two, and you fall in and you grab the son of a bitch.
But it worked.
You're going to win this fight.
Matty, you've nailed it. You've nailed it. You're tongue in cheek. But that's a better plan.
No, yeah.
But that's it. Like so my mate James in the chat has said whatever plan you've given Fisher, it wouldn't have worked, right? And we love James, right? I hope he's okay. Good luck to him. But you could have beaten Dave Allen last night because this wasn't an exceptionally dynamic, light, in shape Dave Allen. It was a decent version of Dave Allen, but it wasn't like the guy you got to sleep. He ain't going to give you nightmares, but you made him look amazing. And I think if I was to say this to you, if Joe Gallagher had trained Johnny Fisher, he would not have had him going backwards for the first 4 rounds. He'd have said, hands up and just edge him, just forward him. Just let Dave Allen get on the back foot. Because these two kids, none of them can fight going backwards. And if you look at when Dave Allen fought Dillian White, David Price, Fraser Clark, these were all domestic level kids. David Price has seen better days. Dillian White was on the come up, really inexperienced. And Fraser Clark hadn't been anywhere yet. These were all very limited, very basic domestic kids at the time. They all beat Dave Allen just by holding centre ring and just walking him about. You don't have to overcomplicate this one. I'm trying so hard not to take nothing away from Dave Allen, by the way. But I'm just...
they did what he had to do.
Last. Yeah, they balled that up last night.
The announcers said one thing that was correct amidst all their bullshit. And somewhere in the 4th round, they said, Allen is starting to old man him. And that's exactly what it was. Yeah. You never, it sounds weird, putting Dave Allen and Muhammad Ali in the same sentence, but it's the old Ali Sherman Tank. It's the same thing that Floyd Mayweather did to Conor McGregor. Hands up, you're going to take a few, walk them down, and you land your shots when they're in the corner. Like the end. Yeah, and it's just it's a shitty Winky Wright. If Winky Wright sucked, but he still wanted to win, that's how he would fight.
But from round 4, Dave must have been listening to Fisher's breathing. He must have felt him sagging. He must have known he got arm punch. All he's got in his arm punches. So Dave was in complete control from round 4. He was really in a groove, and he was just touching him. And going into round 5, you could see how Dave wasn't in any rush at all. He was so natural. It was so organic. And Dave could have been quite happy to say, if you want to go 6 and 7, you'll end up getting pulled out here because I'm going to bounce you around this ring. Dave was in a lovely, relaxed state. But he'd really done a job on Fisher. But Fisher did not help himself deciding I'm going to go backwards all night.
Well, and what I was really McDonald's put in some bad performances, but those low blows he was letting Fisher get away with were absolutely ridiculous. They were clearly below the belt. They weren't on, the upper half of the protector or anything like that. No, they were absolutely low. And it's, that's one of the reasons you got to give some love to Dave Allen. He's kind of I guess the consummate, English Commonwealth kind of gatekeeper guy in the sense ultimately, but he was still, really looking for that signature win. And they were doing every damn thing they could to keep him from doing it, letting Fisher get away with some really dirty crap when he was starting to run out of juice. But Allen just kept walking him down, soaking up them nut shots. And he was not going to be denied. And you got to love it. Like, this is...
Allen knew what he had, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Allen knew that what level. I mean, Allen knew he could get Fisher. He was just, like Des said, he was just going to bide his time and kind of play out the first fight did. And just, he knew that overhand right was going to connect. And he was just biding his time. Like you said, old man. And he knew what was going to come if he just kept his same pace. And it was going to work. Because Allen has been in versus guys that are yes, he hasn't been in versus the A+ guys, but he's been in versus 20 guys that are probably better than Johnny Fisher. So he knows where he's at. He knows
he's been around.
Yeah, he knows. He's Dave Allen, he has I don't know how good his boxing IQ is, but it's decent. And he knew what Fisher was. It's just I don't know.
No, yeah, this is the pinnacle of Dave Allen's career. Let's give him his flowers. Like, I thought that combination he finished Fisher off with was gorgeous. The cleanup left hook was a thing of freaking beauty. It was right on the point. He punched through the target, and he was even coming up with the right uppercut as Fisher fell to the ground and the towel came in. A scene you can see with real pictures and of a Muppet on our screen here. But it was like, I like the 5th round yesterday was the pinnacle of Dave Allen's career. Yeah. And you know what? He's going to get another good payday off of this. He's going to set himself up where he might have an easy life going forward if he plays his cards right. So, freaking hats off to Dave Allen, man. Fucking good for you, man. That's all I have to say about that.
And Matty, no one here is begrudging Dave Allen or Johnny Fisher. In fact, I like both their stories. I like the fact that Dave Allen won't go away, and I like the fact that he's taken on fights that he wasn't meant to win. And that's what Dave Allen done most of his career. I also like Johnny Fisher. I like the fact that he's a young boxer that's prepared to go out there and sell tickets and make himself important because of the numbers he does. I like all that. I'm not into the crap that we get fed from promoters and commentary teams and people that are being given a script to read from. And I'm not interested in some of the outside stuff. In fact, some of the stuff that I see some of the Fisher family do, it repulses me. But I like the story of these two. But I suppose if I'm going to bullet point last night's fights, I want to say that this is Allen's level. Let's not talk about Moses Atoma. Let's not talk about Fraser Clark, Fabio Wardley. I don't want to hear all that. That Dave Allen is an area level kid.
Unless they give him a good payday for it. Like I said, if they give him some 6-figure number that he'd be like, yeah, maybe that one and done. Fuck it, whatever.
Well, you've got to match him. Look, as part of a promoter and part of a matchmaker is matching, knowing your kid and matching them accordingly. To chuck Dave Allen in, he's done that. They've chucked him in with Yoka. They chucked him in with Ortiz. They sent him out to the Ukraine.
He already grew him in with Clark. He fought Clark. Yeah.
Like I don't really want to see him. I'm quite happy if Dave Allen said, you know what, I'm a big noise in Doncaster. I'm a big noise in that part of the world. I can headline a show here at a level. I can be a chief support at a level. I'm okay with that. And as for Fisher, if you're going to bring this kid back, just be a bit more sensible with it. Stop talking like, this ain't some kid off an elite program in the amateurs. This ain't a kid that's got gold medals to his name. This is a kid that's got really basic level skills. And this is a kid that sells a lot of tickets. And I understand how boxing works. You look after your ticket seller. Well, then look after him. Stop telling us he's a world-class prospect and stop getting commentators to say he's got world-class power. I don't want to hear all that, Fanny. Okay? He's a very limited kid who ain't got much of a chin, who ain't got a gas tank, whose leg go from underneath him. He is a modern-day version of Billy Walker, if anyone remembers Billy. He sells a brilliant ticket. He can stack it. He can be part of a card. He puts bums on seats because of what he does. But let's remember that. So, maybe now it's given a few people in boxing that work for broadcasters and people that are involved in the media of boxing, maybe let's give it a little bit of a shake-up. Be a bit responsible with these kids because they are kids of a level.
Yeah. Yeah, and this, and it was the headline of a card that I was of a level at the end of the day. Justin, why don't you give me your thoughts on the undercard? We had Kieran Conway stopping Jerome Warburton, George Lillard stopping Aaron Sutton, Jimmy Sains with the decision over Guinean Onyinani. I don't know how far we want to go down. John Hedges over Nathan Corliss. We'll go that far. If there's anything else you found in you're enthusiastic about, you go right ahead.
I wouldn't say I was enthusiastic. I watched the Conway Warburton fight, and I only watched 2 of the 4 cards on the main card. I watched, of course, the Allen fight, and I watched the Conway Warburton. I like Conway. I like what he did there because he was supposed to win. He was the favorite, and he did what he was supposed to do. And I always like when guys do that. If you're the heavy favorite and you're supposed to win, don't mess around. Warburton, it's funny, the commentators, after like 1 round, you'd have thought the Warburton guy won already because they just were surprised that he actually was competitive in the first round. That's when you were like, okay, this is not going to go long then, because we're sitting there patting this guy on the back. I don't think he really won the round. They were just patting him on the back because he was competitive. So yeah, I like the Conway fight, and Dez I talked about. I didn't see the other 2 undercard fights.
Go right on ahead, Des, for whatever you saw in there.
To touch on Kieran Conway, Kieran's the perennial domestic kid, and he's not been overly active. He's been around a long time, Kieran. He always reminds me of a kid that was at a small provincial amateur club, and his dad might have been the coach or his uncle, and he had a bit of a cozy amateur career. He's turned pro, and after about the first 10 fights, when kids started hitting him back, it slowed down a bit for Kieran. Now, he's been beaten a few times. He gets out about twice a year, and he's really hung around. He's hung around to the point now where there ain't many people to fight, and he just picked up a vacant British title at middleweight. So go and do something with it, Kieran. Go and become active. Go and earn yourself a few quid, and go and be a bit busier than what you have been. And let's see if there's a Lillard fight, maybe 2 fights down the line. Let's see what presents itself. But
middleweight is such a wide open division. Like I think he's in position, like, and you probably lose even considering the level of the tight list, but he's in position where he could probably move into a mandatory slot with another W or 2 if he chose the right path.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got to tell you though, we've seen, whether it's internationally or domestically, middleweight's been really thin on the ground talent-wise for a long time now, and we've seen some. Be careful with my language. We've seen some very, very mediocre middleweight champions over the last 2 or 3 years, both domestically and internationally. So, look,
wasn't the last middleweight you guys were excited about was Gogo, and then he had that eye injury, and now he's wrestling?
No, I think we had a bit of a spell because Eubanks operated at middleweight, and Hamza's been around at middleweight, and of course we had
Shiraz. Yeah, you guys are styles.
Yeah, we had Denzel. Yeah. We've had some middleweights, but we've also had some. I don't want to name their names because it would be unfair on a show like this, but we've had some middleweights. You think, wow, I never thought you was going to pick up a British and Commonwealth. You've done well to get that, but they've been there at the right. They've hung around, and while the kids we just mentioned moved on, there was titles to pick up, and I think that's what Conway's done. He's picked up a title that's vacant because the other kids have moved on a bit. Well, I tell you what. Go and show us you're a good fighter, Kieran. Go and be active and go and defend this belt a few times. Then you can release it and push on a bit to a European level or maybe just a bit above that. I personally think Kieran's ceiling's where it is. I think he's done very well to win a British title. I think they'll live off that. They'll dine off it. I think they'll be very, very happy to have it. And why not? But I think this is as high as it goes for Kieran. But well done, Kieran. He's done everything. Justin's right. He was the overwhelming favourite going in. He was meant to stop Warburton last night. He was meant to do a number on him. It was geared up for him, and he did just that. Who else on the card? I've mentioned Jimmy Sains. Jimmy's one of them kids now that we spoke about a bit earlier. 9 fights, 9 wins, 9 KOs, and you'd think he was some sort of, Triple G or Kovalev. He's not that. Last night he fought the first time. He fought against someone that started to punch back a bit, and Jimmy struggled with the timing and the distance, and that's something he's got to work on there. And sometimes area belts can be the making or the breaking of you. You realise these are really tough because now I'm fighting kids that want to win their first title, and almost welcome to the pros, Jimmy. So we'll see what Jimmy Sains is made of in the next 2 or 3 fights. He's with a good team. He's got 10 fights under his belt now. He's going to have to learn a bit. He's going to have to not get hit so much, not fight with his face. He's going to have to be a bit more relaxed. He looked a little bit rigid, and he struggled with someone who was gangly throwing back. Jimmy's got to get around that. So the next 2 or 3 fights will be really good to see how Jimmy develops, and I hope he does. George Liddard against Aaron Sutton. They're trying to match George Liddard against Kieran Conway, and they're talking about that being Kieran's first defence. I don't know why you do that. I'd let Kieran go and have a defence that I think you might favour him in, and I'd give George another fight or another 2 fights, and maybe that's something we can schedule in for the end of the year or the early part of next year, and that could be a good fight, a big fight, because people have got high hopes for George Liddard. He's 12-0. He can punch a little bit out of level, so that seems to be the route they want to take George to fight Kieran Conway. But other than that, it was a pretty routine card. John Hedges done what he was meant to do. Shannon Ryan actually got a win. But this one was all about the main event. But yeah, it was just a decent card on a Saturday night. No frills, no spills. Very domestic. It was very domestic orientated. It wasn't nothing above area level or just under British level.
Yeah. It was when you have it kind of sold itself because people like rematches when the first one was controversial. That's kind of how you up the interest a little bit on something like this.
And he sells a ticket. And he sells a ticket. This kid Fisher sells a ticket. It's got to be anyone that can do 2,500 tickets is to be respected. I mean, that's a lot of money to bring home. So you can see why they're looking after him, and you can see why 2 very limited kids boxing for a heavyweight area belt can get so much traction, because he brings along 2,500-3,000 people just in the arena itself.
Yeah, it's impressive. People obviously like the family, and they can rebuild from here. It doesn't mean you can't make a living if you pick the level. I mean, as long as you're putting asses in seats, there's dollars to be made, and if people want to check it out, they will. You just got to match them very, very carefully. But yeah. Anyway, that was that was on Saturday afternoon here in the States, Saturday evening in the UK. All in all, it was pretty. Yeah, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the rest of the card. It was all right. But and then Des disappeared. What happened there? But anyways, Jasmine Carey put 249 in the super chat. Thank you, Jasmine. Says, as I said before, Cardi versus Fisher must happen. I think you have something against Fisher. I think you might get bumped around on that one a little bit, but who knows? It's tough when you're in Fisher's position now, where you've taken a loss. It kind of all depends on your ego and what you want out of your career. Like if you really want to work hard and grind your way back up to a level, maybe switch trainers and put different focus in. I mean, you never know. I mean, everybody can improve. That's why you put the work in. But there's also that allure of, oh, this is a fluke, and people, yes men around you saying, you're better than that. Don't let it get you down. And reaching, for what are for you the stars again, and falling back down to earth. But we'll see. I don't know what happens with them, but it was fun while it lasted. Bosh, right?
That's the thing with this big ticket seller. You've got to assume you've got a team around him, and a lot of them team ain't boxing centric people. A lot of them ain't got a clue about boxing, so they think he's 3 or 4 fights away from beating Alexander Usyk. They just don't know about levels. They just don't grasp it. it's a bit like when you see someone watching a football match or a basketball match. I think if I had 6 months training, I could do that. Some people don't grasp levels, you know. So also, I think there's got to be questions asked about the training team. Not because I want to hit the trainer on the head. I just don't. But I just can't believe the trainer sent the kid out with them instructions. And I'd be really interested to see if they stay together, because I think that was a ricket last night. But we'll see. And also, being clipped like that face first is traumatic, and we you know, Johnny, through all the publicity and through all the media stuff they do, fighters know, and Johnny must know, because he seemed like a really nice, humble kid. Johnny must know, you know, I am of a level, and he got clipped last night against a kid of the same level. So where does that put John? Now, this is boxing, you know. If it goes wrong, that's what happens. No dramas. But Johnny's done that to a few people, put them asleep. But it'd be interesting to see how Johnny comes back from that now, because to handle that and to process it, to get your head around it, will be an awful hard thing to do for Johnny Fisher. And I go back to what I said after the first one. You'd have been better off giving Johnny Fisher the L after the first one. People would have respected it. He'd have got his head around it. They can deal with that. They can live with it. But they gave him a bullshit decision, and now this has happened. It's going to be an hard one to come back from.
And they could have said the fight was close, but they could have took him another direction at the same time too.
So Matty, even if you said you lost a real close one against a good kid, now take him another direction, because nothing wrong with that. Michael Watson got beat by James Cook. He thought, he knows too much. I'm going to go a different route. Ends up fighting Nigel Benn and stops Nigel Benn. So you can do that, but they didn't. They see, that's what happens when you bluff people. You end up, you know, you end up shooting yourself in the foot, which is what they've done here. I said it on this show after the first one. You're better off giving Johnny Fisher the L. People can work with that. They can understand it. In fact, it'd have got a lot of respect, because they thought, you know what, you fought your heart out. You hung tough. You got off the floor. You came through it. All right, you never got the win, but it was a close one. Now you take him round a bit. You take him another direction. But because they give him the win, the crowd demanded the return. Johnny stepped up, and now look what's happened.
Yeah, they wanted him to prove that he won that fight, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is unfortunate situation, but you know, I was pulling for him. I had nothing against the young man. I find his dad relatively insufferable, but you know, that's
yeah.
not
Can I make that point?
Sure.
I've got nothing to do with that. I've got nothing to do with that. Look, Johnny himself and the people I speak to involved in the team, really nice people, really good people, humble people, sensible. Yeah, nothing against Johnny Fisher or Dave Allen. They both seem like really nice lads. So we're not talking about the outside stuff that we you know, people see on social media between the dad and all the crap that goes around all that. But Johnny himself, like a nice, humble kid with his feet on the ground, and Dave Allen certainly is that.
Yeah, just because you're a world-class boxer doesn't, you know, make you a disposable human being by any stretch. So, you know, best of luck to him, whether it's in the ring or not, you know, whatever goes on for him. So, but Justin, I think you and I and God knows how many others were the only ones to watch this UFC Fight Pass card, and it's very, very tough for Sergey Bohuchek to be in a boring fight. But Michael Fox, in his style, can do that to basically anybody. I thought he was kind of a live dog in this fight a little bit. He might have been robbed of a knockdown in the 10th round, but that wouldn't have been enough to swing it. But I'd say that Fox gave Bohuchek a pretty good night's work in this main event as far as it goes, and made a very strong puncher look fairly ordinary at the end of the day.
I have a hard time watching Fox.
I know.
He is one of these. He's just so gangly, and I think just because his arms are so long and like his whole body type, also, and the fact that he doesn't want to engage that much. He's just a hard guy to watch. I had that. That's another one of the fights I had on in the corner.
And unlike a lot of the lanky guys, he doesn't get knocked out.
He doesn't.
He's never been stopped, and I think that's because, unlike, you know, your Paul Williams, etc. of the world, like he's gangly, but he's really loose. He rolls basically with every shot. Even if he takes it clean, he sees it coming. He's prepared.
Because he's a big time defensive first fighter. I mean, it's going to be hard to stop him, and he's another one of these guys. I think just because his style is the reason his career has never really taken off, because nobody, and the fact that he has that style that we've seen him get robbed at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, same with his brother Atlantis, right?
Yeah, they both get, because their style is not as it's like the judges, I think, also have a hard time like trying to, like, because sometimes if you really know boxing, you can see the good stuff they're doing and you can notice it. But a lot of these judges, I mean, they don't, I guess they ain't, you have to really know boxing to catch the little things he does to win rounds, and it is hard. Like he beat the Maestre guy, whatever his career. Talk about end up being nothing, that Maestre. But Fox, him and his brother, they just have a weird style. They're always going to be that kind of who needs them. I don't really know why Bahuchek decided to fight him. Honestly, this must have been for ranking, or because I don't know why you would have picked Fox as the guy to fight.
Yeah,
there must have been a reason behind why you would have chose. And didn't Bahuchek come in overweight too?
I think I heard he came in like 5 pounds overweight. I don't think he was very into the whole prospect.
He wasn't into it all.
After getting that big Saudi money, I think he was.
Yeah,
he just. I think here we are again.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of like, shit. I got to fight this guy on a UFC Fight Pass, and nothing wrong with UFC Fight Pass since you're a new member of it, but these are the kind of fights that end up on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah, I think more interesting to me is like every so often there's a killer fight on a pay-per-view and everything ends up on their library after for however fucking long. So I'm like,
they do show like random cars. They'll have like random cars that you can't get anywhere else. They do bring up some stuff, but yeah,
for $5 a month at the end of the day, considering the way DAZN is treating people, and hey, fuck them. I need new shit to watch at this point in time. I'll go through the UFC library out of fucking absolute boredom, look up the most brutal fights in UFC history, and work my way through.
DAZN tricked everybody. Hey, look at all the companies we have fighting for us now. But guess what? You don't get to watch any of the fights.
Yeah.
Pay like extra money.
Yeah, they got all pay-per-view is dead to watch these two fucking British level.
Remember, everybody was on like Twitter and online saying, "Hey, this is the best value look. You get Queensberry, you get all these promotions." Yeah, you don't get. That's very rare. You'll get any fights without having to pay for them. Plus, what you're already paying. Man, they fuck people over on that one. Which everybody should have known better.
Yeah, it's a shame it's a privately held company, because I'd be very curious to look at those numbers. But anyways, back to the UFC Fight Pass card, which thank you UFC Fight Pass for at least giving me something to watch. Omar Conde Trinidad went the distance with Alexander Espinoza. He's undefeated, but this guy, Justin, I kind of thought that he there's just something lacking with him, and he just I kind of rate him along kind of like, I guess, like the Angel Fierro kind of guys of the world, where they're just going to run into somebody who beats them because they don't have enough of a ring IQ, enough variance to their game, but like they're ultimately going to be a good gatekeeper once they realize that their big dreams aren't going to come true, and they relegate to that role in a handful of years. So that's what my Magic 8 Ball is saying for Mr. Omar Conde Trinidad.
He's got a cool name, but
he does.
He needs to play off that Trinidad last name. But you're right. I think we just said this really kind of ties in with Fisher and Allen. There's nothing wrong with having a level. There's nothing wrong with reaching your ceiling and finding your level, because you're going to make probably pretty good money along the way. You're going to get some fame. You're going to make a career out of it. Who cares if you reach your level? It's just that. Yeah, you're so like and maybe along the way you'll upset somebody, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But Trinidad, you're right. He's going to. And you hate to sit there and say that about guys, but we've watched boxing ridiculously too much over the years. And you don't have to be an expert or a trainer to see the little signs of, we've seen that before. We've seen hundreds of these guys before that have the same qualities he does, and you just kind of read it and see that's where it's going, and that's where it's going.
Yeah, and sometimes we get it wrong. Like I think in recent memory, the guy would like going from like one fight to the next. I'm like, who the fuck is this? Was the God no? Let's tell you how forgettable he is. And I'm thinking about his name. Tight listed 147 pounds, top ranked dude.
Oh God,
Is he right? How did he become so forgettable? I saw him fight literally last month, and he beat I think it was, didn't he beat the shit out of Giovanni Santillan for the title? Oh, it's gonna kill me. Oh, that's gonna kill me. Oh, I'm gonna have to go to ESPN and check.
Yeah, I'm going down now.
Right,
Brian Norman Jr.
Yes,
them,
and
yeah.
exactly, and that's another reason that you forget him is he's got two first names. Like
no, but you're right. I agree with you. I definitely didn't see anything special in him. But on the other hand, he hasn't. We've already seen where Santillan's level's at. So the book's still out on Norman Jr. I don't think the book's still out on him. But you're right. He's definitely a guy that I didn't see. Because look at his. So his mandatory is that'd be a good fight. Him and Rocha. That's his mandatory.
I still think that Rocha needs to fight. What's his name again? That he drew with in December.
Curie. Was it the Curies? What's that guy's name?
Curiel. Curiel. Yeah. Not the Curiel at 108 pounds who got knocked out by Note Shinga in their rematch, but the 147 former Olympian Curiel.
Well, his number 2 is Yin Sasaki. I like to see that.
Sasaki is fighting Norman Jr. That's actually happening.
That is, yeah.
I don't know if you saw Sasaki's last fight. I think that might have been the first time I saw him, and he is that come forward, all action, take shots. Japanese.
Yeah, right. They're fighting in Japan the 25th.
Right. I think Norman's going to beat the crap out of him. He is just Sasaki is just so there to be hit.
He's like the same as Santillan. They both kind of have that same, we want to fight too much style. And Norman, we'll see if Norman can beat him in Japan. Then I think that kind of seals where he's at then, because that's that'd be a decent win. But you're right. I'm with you on Norman. I definitely didn't see a world champion, but right time, right place.
No, Norman's a good fighter. And Norman's coming into 147 as it's clear, as Boots is disappearing as well. I think Norman's going to beat. Yeah, I come good a time. Yeah.
It sounds like they really want to make Boots against Teofimo Lopez,
and I think that's going to happen. Tio said it's going to happen. He keeps.
I'll tell you, Bradley. And I'll tell you what, Bradley really likes Tio in that fight, and I'll tell you why I kind of lean on Tim. Like he obviously has an incredible boxing IQ, and he just knows and sees things that we obviously wouldn't. But you're also considering like this is coming from a black man who, after Tio has just zinged all of these freaking racial insults and stuff like that. So when it comes down to it, and you're choosing between a black guy and a really, really racist, not black guy, and you're saying, well, I think the really, really racist guy is going to win. I think you have to take his word for it. I just think that's an extra layer of trust built into that whole decision, and knowing that he has taken emotion out of the whole thing. Like deep down inside, he's probably thinking, God, I really hope Boots knocks the shit out of this motherfucker. But he being honest with himself, he's like, yeah, I think Tio wins.
I'm still leaning Boots in that one. I still say Ennis beats him, but you never know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting fight, and there's we're bouncing around. It was on you Fight Pass real quick. I'm trying to think who I thought might have been the high point in that card. Obviously on the women's end, I think Mizuki Haruta. There's something to be said about her. She could be something to watch at 115 pounds. Obviously a tight list already. An upset Michael Myers, not the horror character. With an E in there. He beat Cop Eduardo Diaz, who had just started training at the Wildcard gym. Maybe
so he has to come out. So he has to come out of the music, right? You would want to go all out if your name's Michael Myers.
Yeah.
You'd have to.
Yeah, and he calls himself the Boogeyman too.
Yeah, you have to go for it.
Maybe Abel Mejia, I think was how you pronounce his name. Maybe that might have been the highlight of.
I just watched the coup of the main event. I didn't go.
Yeah. Oh, I watched it down deep, and it started at like 8 o'clock my time because we're an hour ahead of.
I had a show last night, so I didn't. I just watched the replay this morning. I didn't stay up for that.
What did you perform or did you?
No, they're called. No, they're called shows. Is what our events is when I do stuff for my company, my school, and schools and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So they're called shows or events. No, I'm not singing.
Oh, I thought something interesting. You're like,
no, it's not interesting. It's just,
here we are.
We call them that.
Still boring. Okay, good to know. Nothing has changed. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember who asked this question last week in the chat. Des, as we're extending our show here, since not a lot happened. And it was regarding Matthew Saeed Muhammad and asking why he wasn't bigger in the world of boxing. And I had opined that I thought like there was definitely limitations and it was very hard to cross cultural barriers as a black man who is a Muslim. But you got a little bit deeper into that. And what were your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, that question was posed by Michael from the Nuthouse chat.
There you go. I knew you remember.
Michael's a mate of mine. Michael's a very knowledgeable guy on sport, whether it's rugby, hurling, Gaelic football, boxing. Really,
all those niche Irish sports. You guys they get into that shit hardcore. It's awesome.
He knows his sport, Michael. Really knows his sport, and he's one of the real popular guys on the chat. So he asked a question. Out of this brilliant crop of light heavies that we saw in the 70s, and there was Spinks coming into it in the late 70s after 76 gold. We had Saeed, we had Quahi, we had Marvin Johnson, Eddie Gregory, who became Eddie Mustafa Mohammed. We also had John Conti going into that in the late 70s. And they were brilliant fighters. And anyone that watches those guys, you're captivated by how ferocious they were and how exciting they were and how determined and dogged they were. And why didn't they catch light? Why are we not speaking about them in the same veins? Why wasn't films made about them? And why hasn't more books been written about them? And why are they not on the public conscious like perhaps some other eras of boxing? Like we know about Pryor and Arguello and that rivalry. We know about Ray Leonard, Pryor, and Howard Davis in the amateurs. We know about the brilliant Four Kings. We know about the middleweights of the early 90s in Britain. But why weren't these guys spoken about? So, I mean, I'd love to hear what you guys have got to say after I say what I'm saying, because you guys are a bit more closer to it than me. But I think they had short careers in comparison, these guys. They were sort of so fast and ferocious. They burnt out quick. So people like Saeed, he had a window of 6 or 7 years, and then he was on the turn. Spinks moved up to heavyweight. Gregory was done by the late 70s, and Quay the same. And you could probably say, look, you had this brilliant crop of light heavies. Unfortunately, they was running parallel alongside the greatest crop of heavyweights we've ever seen. Them heavyweights of the 70s were some of the greatest sports ever known.
It's important to note, Des. It's important to note that at that time, that was before cruiserweight existed. So there was basically, for anybody to want to go further than light heavyweight was a huge jump that most of them weren't, physically capable of necessarily. So for a lot of light heavyweights, they just found themselves, I would imagine, in a no man's land if they could no longer comfortably make the weight anymore.
Well, it's a great point. I'm going to come to that. You've hit on something. But also, just on a small scale, colour television had now been established for 10 years and it was in everyone's homes. So families in America could watch the NBA and the NFL live in colour. And I just think when you throw all them things into the pot, some things took a back seat. But for me, the real reason why them light heavies never got the traction they probably deserved, we never spoke about them like we should have done, was purely because the light heavyweight division has always been the bridesmaid of the original 7. It's always been the second row. It wasn't the middleweights or the welters. It wasn't the heavies. And even to the point where Roy Jones was a light heavyweight champion and probably the best boxer of 50 years, we still never grasped how important, how exciting it could be. Light heavies have always been the bridesmaid. So there isn't one answer to Michael's question. I can only tell you that them guys run parallel alongside the greatest heavyweights we've ever seen. They was competing with colour TVs that screened NBA and NFL. It's the first time a generation had seen that in their houses. And the light heavyweight division has always been second fiddle. Now, you're right about the cruisers. They came in at 1980 and late 50s, early 60s, we saw the light welters and the light middles. And those weights, when they first arrived, wasn't viewed with much interest or taken that seriously. And if anybody remembers when super middleweight came in the mid 80s, it sort of coincided with the arrival of the WBO belt, that division and that title wasn't taken that seriously. And unfortunately for them brilliant fighters of the mid to late 70s, and they were brilliant fighters, the light heavyweight division just wasn't taken that seriously. It didn't spark enough interest. So Michael's right. We lost a cluster, a group of brilliant fighters that all fought each other in brilliant fights. It was its own scene, but we lost it because for some reason, the boxing public and boxing in general never took light heavyweight that seriously.
So here's an issue. So Justin, and feel free to make any points you want on this, but go into that cruiserweight point. Here's something I was just thinking of a name from that era. I'm like, wonder what he did towards the end of his career. Bob Foster. All right. So he fought a gentleman named Bob Hazelton a couple of times, really right towards the end of his career. Won one, lost one. In the first fight, he was outweighed by 30 pounds, 186 to 215. And the rematch was 183 to 222. So there you go. Like these guys did, some found themselves just as people without a weight class after their prime, unfortunately. Bob Foster fought Muhammad Ali. He gave up 40 pounds to Muhammad Ali. You forget about all this shit in the way that these guys were just super ballsy with what they did in their time. And fought Joe Frazier. Yeah, just like 1970. Yeah, I'll fight Joe Frazier. Got knocked out in 2 rounds. What the fuck are you gonna do?
And Michael Spinks bypassed cruiserweight altogether. That's how little regard they had for it. So he went from light heavy straight into the heavyweights, and fought Larry Holmes, who was considered a big heavyweight at the time. Down at light heavy, it was almost like how we view cruiserweight now. If you can get your head around this, how we view cruiserweight now, you're only there as a stopgap. You're going to grow into the heavyweights, which is pretty much how they viewed light heavyweights. You've got to get into the heavyweight division. If you're going to stay down at 75, you're going to play second fiddle, I'm afraid. But it's not the only brilliant group of fighters that haven't caught light. If you remember, in the early 90s, America had a group of middleweights: Bernard Hopkins, Roy Jones, Michael Nunn, James Toney, Mike McCullum, Julian Jackson. Throw Gerald McClellan into that group, there's 7. And you had other really good fighters there. Peripherally good fighters. They never caught light. And my theory on that was they all had the skill of Sugar Ray Leonard, but not the fight. So they all knew how to cancel each other out. So when you watch Hopkins and Jones one, when you watch Hopkins, Jones and Tony and Nunn, they all seem to cancel each other out because they're so skilled. They're so technically good. They are absolutely sublimely brilliant.
Yeah, but Roy Jones separated himself from the pack, and he got the notoriety because of it. Everyone knew who fucking Roy Jones Jr. was.
Roy Jones was a high achiever, but so was Bernard Hopkins, so was James Toney. They was all brilliant fighters.
He had to grind it out. He had to grind it out, though. Like, you have to remember that after that Roy Jones Jr. fight, Bernard Hopkins ended up going, what was it, to Ecuador and fighting Segundo Mercado. That was before he, I think he fought Kovalev. Was like the last time that he had been dropped in his career. He was having to do crazy shit to get back to notoriety after that Roy Jones loss.
That's correct. But if you ever watched the Jones and Hopkins fight, if you ever watch it, it was a tactical fight. It was a fight, a few punches. It was who blinks first type of fight. Tony and Jones was the same. It would put a glass eye to sleep. But they had the skill of Sugar Ray Leonard. That's the point I'm making, but not the fight. And they all cancel each other out. So just like the brilliant group, the light heavy group of the mid to late 70s, we had a brilliant middleweight group of the early 90s, and no one talks about them either. It can sometimes happen in boxing.
Well, I think people have to remember too, like a Matthew Saad Muhammad. I think that's what Michael was focusing on. He wasn't a personality, and he wasn't one of these guys. And I do believe that the Muslim name change didn't help him or Dwight Kawi. But we've already seen with boxing. Boxing is it doesn't matter how much we love it, is a niche sport overall. And people in a country like United States, that look at the boxers that are remembered, their personalities. They're big personalities. That's why you remember them. They were celebrities because of their personality and they did things that, like Floyd, you're going to always remember Oscar. You're always going to remember Muhammad Ali. You're going to remember these names because of their personalities, not just what they did in the ring. That's just part of it. And so a lot of those guys from the 70s and the 80s, I think I've mentioned, like Brady Briscoe, all these other guys, it's only the hardcores that are going to remember them. They're not going to be remembered by the national media or the national public or the world. They're not going to be faint. They're not going to be. I think Michael talked about why don't they get more recognition? They're just not going to. It might upset us, and we might think they should, and they really should. But like Matthew Saad Muhammad we all know how incredible he was. He's one of my top 3 guys of all time. I mean, go back and watch any of his fights. Anything he ever did was incredible. But he was in a time where he just didn't have personality. He wasn't backed. It's not like he was backed by a Don King type guy. And so especially the way he ended his career, he got pushed to nobody wanted him. Nobody wanted to be around him. He was doing MMA. He ended up being homeless. There's a lot of side stories to that, but a lot of these guys, Eddie Gregory was a great fighter. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad is what he changed his name to. These are all incredible fighters, but they didn't have the backing. They didn't have the personality. That's why they're not remembered by the mainstream media. And that they're not football players. They're not NBA players. We're boxing. And unless you can click that right Mayweather tune or the Ali tune or like Tyson, you've got to have it doesn't matter about your skill in the ring. You've got to have a little something else. And if you don't have that, then you're not going to be remembered by the masses. And that's just the way it is.
Good take there. Sorry, I was reaching for my volume knob there. And it's, I guess it's tough for some of these guys a lot of time too. They never got I guess, Des, what you would call necessarily a signature win over that that huge name. I mean, if you dig through, like, you know, some of the people in there and you know, just how tough they were, you know, it's hard to rate from where you're sitting just off a resume. There are plenty of good fighters in there, but again, like there's just a fair number of these guys that never had a signature victory.
Yeah. Sometimes you can just wonder why didn't it fall for me? You know, why is coming a little bit off piste? Why is Wilfred Benitez not in that? Why is it 4 kings and not 5 kings? What was wrong with Wilfred Benitez?
A lot of people do include him, honestly.
Yeah,
I think
he's branded the 4 kings, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that the easy answer to that one is because you had, well, no, it isn't, because Duran. I was going to say because you got 4 Black American fight. No, you don't. You had Roberto Duran in there. Yeah, that's a good point there. I mean, he was just kind of left out of the fold there. Very good fighter.
He was a brilliant fighter. He was a brilliant fighter, phenomenal fighter. And it could have been the 5 kings, but for some reason, those 4, Duran, Hagler, Leonard, and Hearns, they caught fire. The personality, the punch, the everything about them. And you had 4 different personalities. And it really worked. Justin made a really good point about that light heavyweight group. They didn't have much personality and they was all about business. Could you imagine the heavyweight division, Norton, Frazier, and Foreman, without Muhammad Ali in the middle? Because Muhammad Ali spiked them all up. He got them going. He was the mouthpiece. He was the one that antagonized them all. He was the one that confronted them all. He was the one that brought out the side to Sonny Liston. He was the one that ridiculed.
He stirred the drink. He stirred the drink because, like you said, they didn't have. Yeah. He got them, like you said. He like Mayweather did. Like all these guys, you have to have something about you that's going to click with the national media and the fans, and Ali and them had it because, like you said, Joe Frazier did not have it. He was not a personality. He didn't like the limelight. He wasn't going to go out there. That's why he didn't like Ali, because he didn't like Ali because Ali wouldn't shut up and wanted to be in the limelight. Foreman was sort of the same way. He wanted, that was during his, I'm going to bite your head off. And he remember George admitted he was an asshole. He said, I didn't like anybody. And Norton was sort of still an unknown. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't a guy that did those Mandingo movies. If y'all have ever seen those. Has everybody ever seen them? Everybody ever seen the Mandingo? They're like what they call it?
I haven't.
They're like the black exploitation films.
Blaxploitation, yeah.
Well, he played Mandingo and he rode a horse with like no shirt on. It was like the Kid Norton. Like he was like I don't know what it was. I'm a big Ken Norton fan.
That's
so I was
great.
Like,
how have I not seen this?
I was like, let me see what these movies are. And they're pretty rough.
Now, Justin, we talked about that. Like one of the greatest heavyweights of all time for absolutely everything. Fight, desire, determination, guts, and skill was Larry Holmes. But he was penalised because he fell between Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. Sometimes you could.
Larry Holmes was a damn brag personality too. He wasn't. The only thing he did exciting was jump over a car. But guess what? People remember that, don't you? When you think Larry Holmes, you're going to remember him jumping over that car. These guys, he
paid the price of following Ali.
He did, because people didn't want to. You're not going to be as good as Ali, and they didn't care about it. They think, oh, well, you're just
absolutely.
He handed you the belt. You're second rate. But Larry Holmes is one of those guys that just because, like you just said, he never gets the respect because he beat an old Ali. Larry Holmes was one of the best heavyweights of all time. He just, like you said, he was stuck in a bad. He's sort of like, what he reminds me of, and people give me hell for this. He reminds me of like Klitschko. It's not Klitschko's fault that he was stuck in between a good era and a bad era. He was just kind of stuck there. It's not his fault. And he's always going to be remembered as, he didn't fight nobody. But he just come along at a time where there wasn't a lot of people out there, but he took them all out. And that's kind of what Larry Holmes was. He come in when the heavyweights were a little thin, and he took them all out. And they just don't get the respect for what they did. And Larry Holmes was, if anybody goes watch his fights, I mean, I think I watched a fight. Talk about Kid Norton. I don't know. I had to tell this story real quick. He was fighting. Y'all seen Rocky? You remember Spider Rico, the guy that Rocky beats up like 3 times in the movie? Well, he was a real fighter. He was a real boxer, and he fought like Ken Norton. He fought a bunch of guys. And I'll never forget this. He was the only fighter they said that fought with a wig. He fought with a toupee.
That's awesome.
And his hair would bounce up when he got hit by Ken Norton. That's just I don't know why I thought about that, because you said Ken Norton. If anybody goes back, I'll have to find his name here in a minute. I'll look for his name. But he fought Ken Norton, and the guy was like, "Yeah, he fights with a hairpiece." and I was like, "What?" And he said, "You might remember as Spider Rico." And so, that's just a side story. But if anybody wants to watch that fight, I gotta go.
But I think Matty, that we have to also mention something. I think you said, it might have been Justin, that during the height of the Cold War, a lot of them light heavies, they converted to Islam, and I just think that might have turned a lot of people off as well, and they were easier to turn off because they didn't have the personality of Muhammad Ali, and they didn't have, there was a lot of factors. It wasn't just one issue, one reason. There was probably 4 or 5 things when you put into the pot. It was easy to turn your back on those brilliant light heavyweights in the late 70s.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to that Ken Norton, were you the one? I swear I just heard recently somebody had said that Ali had went to Ken Norton, said that it went to George Foreman and said that he needs to beat Ken Norton for him because he didn't think he could beat Ken Norton.
I did say that. Yeah, I did say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it was Des that said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And George Foreman never ever thought he could beat Joe Frazier. He said Joe Frazier was the one that scared him out of everyone. And he flattened him, yeah. But he said if I could ever get near Joe Frazier, there'd be no one that could beat me. They never considered the Holmeses or the Nortons or the Alis. Foreman always thought Joe Frazier was the one to beat. He was the one that scared him the most.
I'll tell you what, and just it's one of those weird things about venue can make a difference. I would argue that Foreman probably beats Ali in a place like Madison Square Garden.
Well, that whole event in Zaire went against Foreman, didn't it? That was a brilliant story. And when you unpack that, and Foreman, unfortunately, and George Foreman wasn't black enough in Africa because Muhammad Ali was more black. Muhammad Ali really whipped up the crowd. Muhammad Ali was the people's champion in Africa, and George Foreman felt like a stranger in Africa, and it really got into his head. And George Foreman spoke about this, and we done a George Foreman tribute, and he said after Zaire, I couldn't look in the mirror, and I didn't enjoy a meal, and I didn't have a good night's sleep for about 2 years. Yeah, that's a good fair point, Matty. Had that have been in New York or somewhere like Vegas, maybe George Foreman would have had a better chance. But in Africa, it all went against him.
Yeah, just the heat index it was going against you for the style that he was used to fighting. Like it's the same thing. Like Ray Robinson would have probably been the light heavyweight champion of the world if they would have been in an indoor venue and not outdoors in a heat wave in like a historic heat wave in New York City. Right? Was that against Joey Maxim?
And the same arguments we had for Barry McGuigan against Steve Cruz. Maybe the Barry McGuigan train wouldn't have been derailed had he not taken on that late replacement, a plumber, and fought in that Las Vegas and the Nevada heat. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that might have been the case with Billy Conn and Joe Louis, maybe too.
I don't know that one.
That'd be digging back, Justin. You know that one because I think Conn got knocked out in the 13th or the 14th round in that one.
I'm sure I read it. Billy Conn. Those are all great names. Like I said, go back to Box Rec and look at all these crazy names. Sailor Johnson, like Billy Conn. Billy Conn too.
I think the second one, Lewis beat the snot out of him because Billy Conn was the light heavyweight champion, going back
Yeah.
to our discussion, who had moved up to fight Lewis, the heavyweight champion. Joe Lewis not being a huge guy, though. I think he was, like the 205, 210-pound kind of guy.
Those were men back then. Those guys, they didn't care. It's like they'd go up 30 pounds, 50 pounds. Those guys didn't care to go up. Well, whatever. They just like, if it was the money was there and they got a chance to do it, they would go. And that's just not the same. People aren't built like that anymore. Definitely. There's no doubt about it. People are not built like those guys back in the 30s, 40s, 50s.
Oh, those were totally different motherfuckers.
Yeah, they were.
There's no way other way to say.
Yeah, there's nobody like these guys. Like, I mean, they fought for their country in the war, and they went out there and fought like 50 times a year. And like,
that's another thing you have to remember. Boxing required more from its fighters back then as well.
Way more.
It required you to be active, and the crowd and the networks required you to fight the best. It wasn't like it is today. Boxing required so much more of its fighters back then.
Yeah, Billy Conn against Joe Lewis. The first fight was at the Polo Grounds. It was 60,000 people in June, so that could have been pretty hot. Yeah, especially outdoors with that many people. Nobody talks about like what body heat will increase the temperature. Like indoor, outdoor, what the hell? Like that many people together in the same place.
The humidity, like in the summer, just sucking the life out of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is like that's the thing. Like there is a difference in the dry heat of a place like Las Vegas and the humid heat of other places. Like at the end of the day, both of them really like suck horribly, but shockingly in humid weather when it gets hot, like it doesn't matter if you're drinking water or what. Like in a place like Vegas, you can drink yourself the stupid with water, not alcohol, and manage the heat. When it's humid, a place like Louisiana, you're just fucked. It's stupid. Anyhow, you guys will learn more about that as more of you have to get AC in your houses in the
Good
UK.
question, though. Really good question, Michael. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Then our man, Marcin, actually, I think it might be pronounced Martin. I believe I asked him and I've already forgotten long ago. I forget a lot of things. I'm still working on my pronunciation of Cotter. Cotter. Well, I don't know. Someone timestamped this for Haddam.
Some people say Cutter.
Yeah. Haddam said, but it's a hard KH kind of sound. Yeah. So it can't be Cutter. It'd be like Cotter.
Like I said, I've heard it like 9 times, different ways.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's all really, really fucked up. But our man Marcin asks us if what's the hardest low blow that we've ever seen, and the one that always comes to mind for me is Hatton's retaliatory blow against Kostya. That one was pretty vicious. What about you, Justin? Anything come to mind as a particularly vile low blow?
When honor of Marcin, since he is Polish, I guess you'd have to go with Galata. Landed some pretty rough ones. Hell, Fisher last night landed about 15. I think you brought up Mares landing
Mares
fights were brutal. Offhand, there's so many. I can't really think of one. I know the Galata stands out just because that was the famous ones.
There's a combination like that's.
Yeah, he just kept getting him in the nuts.
Like one shot, but Galata's like going in there trying to give him the 2-piece and a biscuit.
Not trying to go off on a tangent, but talk about a waste of talent Galata was. I mean, he was beating Riddick, but he was beating all these guys. He just was mentally collapsed. I mean, have you ever seen a guy who was told you're winning the fight and all of a sudden decide I don't want to win the fight anymore? Like it was just like I said, total something was not wired correctly there because that was anyway. We can go off on that for a whole. Galata was
one of Lennox Lewis's best performances. That was the way he jumped on Galata very early.
Galata was good. Galata was a really talented, tough guy. He just, like you said, went in between the ears.
Mike Tyson's last good win, you could probably argue too.
Yeah.
That night, Lennox jumped on him. There's a lot of people that didn't fancy Lennox in that one, and they thought if Galata makes it ugly, Lennox won't like it. And Lennox just did the opposite. He just jumped on him and stuck it on him very, very quick and sorted him right out. And that was a fight that was, there was a crossroads fight for Lennox when he was on that tour of America trying to get his way back in.
That was the anniversary a few weeks ago, wasn't it? The Rockmon knockout.
Isn't it crazy how no matter really what he did in the ring, Lennox was by the American audience was always looked at as like proper and British and not like an evil, vicious slugger who would just fucking end your night if he so decided in the first 5 or 6 minutes of a fight. He never got that reputation. Like he was always, no matter what he did, like treated as just like, like proper and British and shit. Like, and here he was just knocking motherfuckers out from here to next Tuesday.
Yeah. Brilliant fighter, Lennox.
Any low blows come to mind for you, Des?
Justin stole me thunder, and I'm trying to work. If you said low blows to me, and by the way, it's great to get a question from Marcin, who's a really popular member of the group. He's always active on the chat. I remember it because it was so blatant. Didn't he do it a couple of times and get thrown out, Galota, in that fight?
He did.
So he done it, got told, and then done it again. And if I remember correctly, Riddick Bowe used to have a little firm with him every time he fought. So that, you had the first 10 rows ringside were full of some, pretty heavy duty fellas. But he didn't seem to care, did he, Galota? You're quite right. He was a crackerjack. He was a crank. That's the one that comes to mind for me. I'm trying to think of something British, something we've seen in this country, a low blow that you think, but no. I mean, last night there was 4 or 5 thrown in continuously from Fisher, and the referee was standing right there and didn't identify it, didn't talk about it, didn't even stop the fight and talk to Fisher about it. So Dave Allen done very well to get through that last night because he got hit 3 or 4 times consecutively low blow. But if you're asking me what one comes to my mind straight away, it's Andre Galota and Riddick Bowe.
Bon Scott, rest his soul, says Durant Buchanan.
I looked it up real quick. Bleacher Report
had
the best
one. Yeah, Ken Buchanan, that's the best one.
Bleacher Report had a top 10 of the best low blows of all time, and their number 10 was. I looked it up.
What a great video!
Yeah, you got Holyfield versus Michael Dokes. I do remember that. I do remember that one. They got Bobby Pacquiao. Who the hell remembers Bobby Pacquiao versus Hector Velasquez? Y'all remember Bobby Pacquiao?
Oh, I remember him. Bobby Pacquiao. Anyone should.
You've got Ricky Hatton versus Costas Zoo was 7th. You got Cotto versus Judah.
I remember that. Like, and he went on the floor, and Zab was like he hit my dick, man.
Yes. You got Schmeling versus Jack Sharkey, which is going. We're going a little back on Duran versus.
Yeah.
There's your Duran versus Buchanan. They got number 4.
That's the best one. Bon Scott. That's the best one. Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather versus Zab Judah again. God, Zab Judah's on the list twice.
Yeah, that's the one that started the fucking riot in the ring where they all went at it. Both guys could have been DQ'd.
Yeah, and Galata has got number 1 and 2 on their list.
Matty.
No blows.
That's great.
Matty. I read years and years ago, I read the Ken Buchanan autobiography, and I was a big fan of Ken Buchanan. He's a brilliant, brilliant fighter. And he never got over that loss. He said, I was cheated out of my world title. And he knew how good Duran was, and the people around Duran knew how good he was. They never had the return. And even though Ken had a career after that, he never hit the heights, the brilliant heights of where he was at pre-Duran. And anyway, he even says in his book, 30 years later, I used to struggle to live with it. And I knew Duran was in New York, so I got on a plane and flew to New York looking to meet him because I wanted to have a sort out. I wanted to have a straightener with Roberto Duran to prove I was the better fighter.
I was just thinking, here's something on it. I think this, maybe our man Fergal might have to chime in on this. Maybe I'm just pulling an idea, I'm obviously pulling it kind of out of nowhere and thinking there might be some relevance to it. But you look at some of the fights on this list and how either the guys never fought really, a couple times never fought again, and otherwise never fought to the same form after that. I wonder if some of these guys have been hit so hard in the testicles that it affected their testosterone production.
Well, funny you say that. It's come back to me.
I don't know. I don't know that it's funny at all.
Well, funny you say that. It's come back to me. It's come back to me. Bobby Van Zeen and Stephen Smith for the British lightweight title in about 1999, maybe 98, and Bobby Van Zeen hit Stephen Smith low, and Stephen Smith said, "It's I don't know what you could do to your testicles, but he fractured one of his testicles."
Well,
yeah,
he
so
ruptured
that was
he ruptured his testicle.
He ruptured his testicle. Yeah, that's the word, ruptured. Yeah. So that was in about the late 90s. Bobby Van Zeen, Stephen Smith for the lightweight title. I recall it now. And Stephen got stopped that night, and he said, the constant low blows, and then it later come out that he said he'd ruptured one of his testicles.
That's a terrible fucking way to go, man. I remember early UFC, they used to let people hit people in the balls and that stuff. It was vicious. That like that's like one of those rules. You're like, yeah, that's a good change. You probably shouldn't allow people to do such things to another human being in a sport that actually has rules. But
we've got to be careful. We've got to be careful now, Matty, because we're now talking about geezers' testicles and all sorts. So this is a slippery slope. We've got to be careful now. Martin's got us talking about testicles on the chat.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, testicle asylum, testosterone asylum, something. But yeah, anyways, that was a fun question. Nice little break in the usual. But yeah, let's go into the schedule here. And how do I want to lead this one off? That's a good question here. I'm also going to check a couple of other sources because God knows. But let's start off with a fight on Friday because this is some good British fare here to kick things off. And I would ultimately call this, I guess, European level fight, maybe a good trades fight. I just think it's a decent fight all in all. But this will be in Yorkshire on Friday. We got Maxi Hughes versus Archie Sharp, also Terry Harper and Natalie Zimmerman, Tyson Gallagher against Ebony Jones, Ali Hellowell against Stevie Levy. My God, there's a whole lot of women's fights on here. Reese Mold against Louis Sylvester, James Flint against Hatham Lamuz. And God knows if that has changed. These things tend to happen, and ESPN won't update it. God love the people in the chat who are usually so kind as to correct me. But I do think that this is a solid card, Des. I mean, as far as the main event, people might not be in a women's fights. A couple of decent ones on there. Reese Mold, good to see him out again. But the main event, that definitely will catch your attention. I think Hughes is a pretty substantial favorite. But Sharp is a guy, again, another dude who's really hunting for a signature victory. Could this be his moment?
It's promoted by GBM Sports, and they're a local promoter based in that part of the country in Sheffield, I believe they are. And they've got some sort of broadcast viewing deal with DAZN, which is brilliant for them. So they're putting on this show, and it's pretty much local guys. So what we saw yesterday on the DAZN card, which was a lot of local guys from London, we're now seeing a similar type of thing, local guys in Sheffield, which is in the north of England, it's in Yorkshire. So Terry Harper, I'm presuming she's with a new trainer now, Ryan Rhodes, because there's something. She's not with Steffi Ball for this one. Well, not split. She's not with him for this one. So Terry Harper against Natalie Zimmerman. Look, Terry's got this horrible style.
Oh, Des, I got to tell you, her opponent might have an undefeated record at 13-0, but starting from her first fight, I'm going to give you the record of her opponents. It's not going to take long. 13 of them. We have a debut, 0-3, debut, 1-8, 14-41-4, 4-15-2, 7-47, 4-8, 16-17, 1-1, 2-3. I looked through there and I am unable to find a fighter with a winning record on her Natalie Zimmerman's record, who is 42 years old and hailing from Hamburg, Germany.
Right. So Terry's got this awful style, which is to hit and go backwards. So she's very, very reactive, and women's only box for 2-minute rounds. And so she's worked out if I can land and then go on my toes and not engaged, not get caught, I'll just keep pinching rounds. Zimmerman hasn't got the motor skills or the experience to work that one out. Terry can fight. Terry's been involved in some really good female fights, but she doesn't like being punched, in my opinion. And this is perfect for Terry. So they'll get her out. She's with a new trainer, and this will be like a tick over. This will be something for Terry to get out and get a win with her new trainer. James Flint is on. James Flint is the kid that beat Campbell Hatton twice. He's got a hard fight against Lamuse. Steffi Levi, she's getting out again. She's got a hard fight against Helliwell. That's going to be a difficult one for her. But the main event, and this card's pretty much all about the main event, is Maxi Hughes and Archie Sharp. Difficult one because the last time we saw Archie was when he was getting beaten by Ryan Garner. And I didn't think he looked that good in the one before that against Fukanda Arca, which is he got away with that one. If you recall, he got dropped really heavy. I think it was twice in the first round, and he got away with it. Maybe Archie might be a victim of being inactive and being put on the shelf for a long period of time, and we're now seeing a fighter that's probably missed his window. Now, Archie Sharp was a reasonably talented kid with a reasonable amount of ability, but as he stepped up in levels, it's what we spoke about earlier on. He's just not that puncher. And guys like Archie their tools need to be sharp. They need to be active, and he's just not been active enough. Now, in contrast, we've seen like a resurgence from Maxi Hughes in the last 2.5 years. We've seen him travel. We've seen him win fights lose fights he should have won. We've seen him acquit himself really well. We've seen him lose fights soundly, but still hit the last bell and acquit himself very well. All power in the Williams Apeda one. I think Maxi has shown that he belongs at a fringe world class. I just can't see how Archie Sharp's going to be sharp enough, pardon the pun, active enough, punch hard enough to beat Maxi Hughes. I think Maxi beats him on decision, or they might pull Archie out late doors.
Interesting. The idea of Maxi getting a stoppage there. He's not much of a puncher, but Sharp is, I don't know. He's in it too inactive for too long, and I think it's kind of bit him in the ass.
And I just think he, for Archie's style, he's going to have to be very, very fit, and he's going to have to be sharp, and he's going to have to be. I just don't think he's had enough activity, so he might be able to con his way through the fight. But Max is fit, his game, he's very proactive, he's quite intense. I think you might even see Archie Sharp retiring on his stall, in the last third of the fight. If not, I think he gets beat unanimously.
Interesting. Justin, go ahead. Your thoughts on this card.
I mean, the Hughes fight for me is the most interesting one. And I think
for sure.
I think Dez summed that up. I think Hughes wins a not easy decision because it's not like Sharp's a bum, but Hughes is just we've been using this word a lot today. He's just a level above.
Yeah, I mean, he just absolutely dismantled Gary Cully. He could have easily gotten a stoppage in that one.
No, I don't think anybody would be surprised if Sharp made it a good fight. But he's going to make Hughes work. It's not like Hughes is going to have it all his own, but Hughes should 116, 112. I mean, he should. I don't know if he'll stop him because the only thing I could see the stoppage would be is because Sharp maybe frustration, maybe hurts his eye or something. I don't think he'll just stop him just to stop him. But yeah, Hughes and to the rest of the card, I mean, there's nothing to. I think y'all kind of covered everything. There's nothing to really write home. Terry Hart, I mean, I don't watch the women's fights anyway.
I know you don't.
I do like the Reese Mold guys. I might watch that. I just like his name.
That's an interesting fight going against a guy with one defeat who is definitely, far more limited experience.
I think
Mold's
Flint
been
loses.
rebuilding since that first round stoppage loss a couple back.
I think Flint loses. I think that Lamuse beats him because beating Campbell Hatton is not a real big, not nothing.
True.
And he had to go to war. He had to go to war with Hatton in both those fights too. So yeah, nothing. I think that there's. I will definitely watch the Hughes fight. I probably won't really maybe watch all of it, but I'll check out the mold and the Hughes fight.
All right, yeah, and it's doesn't look like there's much more on there than what was on the ESPN one. So I'm gonna go back over to there. But let's see here. I'm trying to think where would I like to bookend this one. I think we'll bookend it with that one. All right, so this one is going to be from Osaka, Japan. Kind of looking forward to this one. Going to be headlined by Angelo Leo against Tomoki Kameda. Also going to have a strawweight fight between Pedro Tadora and Jinshiro Shigeoka. And I'm always going to be interested. Well, not always, but I'm going to be interested in that one right now because obviously I'm curious, who might be there for Oscar Cayasso to be able to unify the division before he moves up because he's such a fantastic talent. Looking at the rest on there, don't necessarily see anything else I feel worth talking about. Yeah, but so go ahead, Justin, and tell me what your thoughts are on that main event.
Well, I think I said it last week. I always like Leo because I always root for the New Mexico fighters because I lived there for a while, and I always like Johnny Tapia.
Tapia was the shit, man.
So if you like, so I've always been a Tapia fan. He's from New Mexico. Leo's from Albuquerque. I guess people on here might know Albuquerque better because of Breaking Bad. So yeah, I always root for Leo. I think he'll beat Kameda. I think that maybe I'm wrong, but I think that Taduran fight, I think that's a rematch, isn't it?
I'm gonna check that out. I'm trying to remember.
That fight seems like they fought before. I don't know. I think that might be a rematch for some. I think that's a rematch.
Let's see here. Yeah, that was the fight before, and in that one, Taduran, he won by a 9th round stoppage.
Okay, so I was right about that. Yeah, so
he was behind. Yeah, and he was ahead on the cards at the time though. So
this will be an easy one to watch for everybody because it'll be on YouTube. Because if I think this is the Pro Box card.
I think they might be airing it on Pro Box actually.
Yeah, I went to the boxing scene, and boxing scene says it's going to be on Pro Box.
Sweet.
So that's cool. So you can just YouTube that. So everybody can just YouTube that. You don't have to pay for anything. You get to hear Paulie and all them talk,
or you can
commentary,
or you can put their app on your TV and sign up for a free account, and you don't have the random ads popping up on.
Yeah,
YouTube
I have that. It's on my. I did that too on my Roku.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah.
So Pro Box is always good, especially even if you're not getting their card, you still get the good announcing. So you still get that part of it. But yeah, that is a good little and main event. I think Leo. I think Leo's power is a little flattering, I think, because of Lopez, but I don't think he'll stop Kameda, but I think he'll beat him.
Yeah, Kameda's never been stopped in his career.
He won't stop him. Now, if he does stop Kameda, then the power is legit now, which would be a huge, huge win if he was able to stop him in Japan.
Yeah, well, I mean, Leo, since his loss to Stephen Fulton and his move up to 126 pounds, what weight did he fight Alameda at? He fought Alameda at 122 still. Let's see here. Since he moved up to 126 pounds, he's had 3 of 4 by stoppage. The only person who went the distance with him was Baez, and I'm trying to go check. I don't know that Baez has been. Yeah, he has been stopped. Let's see here. Stopped in his most recent fight by an undefeated guy, and against Navarrete. But Navarrete fucking swings. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I would say honestly, I was thinking probably the best bet on that one is for the fight to go the distance. But the Japanese are pretty honest with their scorecards with what happens there. I mean, you can see by what's his name last week going over there, the Argentine guy, Fernando Martinez, getting a win against Ioka, especially so wide. It was almost too fair. Kameda, he's a little bit long in the tooth, I say that at 33 years old, but he hasn't had a really good win in a very long time. I'm going through here. He got vengeance over Lorado Diamini, who I don't know if that guy's any great shakes here. The fact that it really doesn't ring a bell for me. Let's see here. He's a South African fighter. He lost to Jazza Dickens over 12 in 2022. Let's see. I don't know if it was a close fight. Yeah, it was a close fight. So I mean, he might not be the crappiest fighter in the world.
I just found the best name on the card. I just looked it up. Raymond Poon Kaching.
That's a quality name.
Definitely the best name on the card. Yeah, Raymond Poon. The Hunter. That's got to be his nickname, the Hunter. You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
You got it. You got what I'm saying.
Of course,
that's got to be his nickname.
Of course. But yeah, I honestly think Kameda against Angelo Leo is probably going to be the most entertaining fight of the weekend. To be honest with you, that's just my hunch going in. But yeah, looking forward to this one. Let me give it over to Dez, and then Rob Kelly has joined us, and we'll touch, and I'll touch on with Rob on anything that has happened this weekend that he might want to talk about, and then we'll move on with one more card after that.
Well, just quickly, I think Leo beats Kameda. I think Kameda's he's not far off a 20-year pro. He's never really beaten top class guys, and I think Leo's a top class kid, and I think Leo gets through the Kameda one, and we'll probably see Leo v Espinosa. That'd be an interesting fight. I don't want to match make for anyone, but I think that's where they're going with Leo. Good fighter is Angelo Leo. Just a small thing. I don't think it'll be the best fight of the weekend. I think the best fight next weekend will probably be Ekow Essuman and Josh Taylor. I think there'll be a brilliant clash of styles, but we'll get on to that. Great to hear Rob on the pod anyway.
Yes, yep. And we will be going to that card next. So yeah, Rob, go ahead. What have we talked about? We talked about obviously about Fisher and Dave Allen, and we have previewed Maxi Hughes and Archie Sharp and Kameda and Angelo Leo. So yeah, any of that, feel free to speak on, and then we'll move ahead.
Yeah. I'm getting all my predictions wrong lately because I thought Johnny Fisher looked fat the first time that they fought over in Saudi, and I thought maybe with a good camp he'd probably be able to get past Dave Allen if he was anything. But turns out I was wrong. I think it has to be said, like, without giving fucking embellishing it too much, it's an outrageous card for a Saturday night. The two of them fuckers headlining at the Copper Bosch, as they say. Look, John Fisher, I've said before, like, he's a ticket seller, isn't he? Like, he has a fan army. He probably has extra pressure on his shoulders because of the Outlads gone so big physically and metaphorically, in terms of his appeal on social media. He's carrying an extra pressure. He's been on a world food tour with the dad, which I'm sure wasn't the best prep for the first fight, but by all accounts he had a big and full and long second camp. I just think, like, he doesn't look like a fighter, the kid. Like, it's hard on him, and I don't like completely writing off professional fighters. Like, he's in there and he's doing his bits, like, he's doing his camp, he's doing his training, but he's been fighting knockover jobs up to the point of Dave Allen. He got Babbage probably at the right time on the way out. Looked like he might be able to be a bit of a draw down the line, maybe get himself into a big domestic British fight, something like that. We had to see how far he was going to go. But if you can't get past Dave Allen after 2 attempts in 2025, you'd have to think he's not really going to go anywhere. Like, he's fucking talking about back to the drawing board. Like, Jesus Christ Almighty. His feet are very bad. He's very bad on the back foot. His jab was okay, but he wasn't authoritative with it. He wasn't pumping it out. And I just thought Allen old manned him again. So he learned nothing from the first fight. He went into the second fight, did the exact same thing. Too herky-jerky with the movement, wasting loads of energy. I mean, he looked like he was trying to go to the body. He was trying to, but he just wasn't. He wasn't able to make anything happen in the fight. And as soon as Allen clipped him, you could see his legs were gone. And I'm not saying he didn't have the stomach for it. He tried to get up after the first knockdown, but the second one was a brutal KO, and the towel was flying in anyway. So listen, if Dave Allen is wiping you out after 5 rounds in a rematch fight where you're favored to win, you might have to they might have to take a different approach now. I don't know, like if they, I don't know how good he is or if he's even gatekeeper level. Like he'll have to, and he looked poor last night. Like the fight looked poor. Like it was dramatic in terms of the knockout, and I suppose there's entertainment value of two guys at that level plodding away. I don't want to take too much away from Dave Allen. He's been much maligned on this pod, especially, but it's all his own fault. He'd say that himself, like, wouldn't it? He hasn't ever trained. He's even said last night he came in heavy on purpose as part of the strategy, but then later in the interview afterwards said he just didn't do the diet. Like, so he's not going to train. He's not going to take the sport seriously, but he can still earn a few quid, and he can beat a lot of guys that you can put him in there as an opponent with, and he can probably beat him and fiddle him about after a couple of rounds. But you know, Eddie was like Don King last night, wasn't he? He came to the ring with the champion and he left with the champion. Like he was all John Fisher in the build-up, and then he was all Dave Allen in the aftermath. Like, typical evening Ed. So look, harsh on John Fisher, but look, if you find out harsh lessons in boxing, the kid's not good enough. Like he's not good enough. He's not going to be anything. Like if him and Tommy Fury would be a big fight down the line if Tommy Fury went up the weight. Like, wouldn't it? Maybe he should try his hand in the misfits celebrity boxing. That's not a smart remark now or whatever, or a jab at the guy. I think like he probably has massive misfits potential. That's not the route he wants to go. He wants to be a proper pro, but he can still earn a few quid on cards like that for sure. But in terms of doing anything as a heavyweight, you can fucking forget about it. And even if you look at their records, like Dave Allen was fighting the guy like Luis Ortiz and D.D. White early doors in his career. You know, Lucas Brown, those kind of guys. You have to say Johnny Fisher would be wiped out by any of those kind of opposition if he has a certain level. I just don't know what it is. Maybe his area level. Like I don't know. Guys will probably be able to tell you better. Like, but a poor fight for a Saturday night headlining card, and maybe that's what we're getting now. That Turkey holds all the chips in terms of matchmaking. That's what you got left. Like Dave Allen versus Johnny Fisher too. Fuck me, man.
The leftovers are weak.
Jesus Christ, and they're the headliners. Like, but
giving us muffin stumps.
That's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point. We spoke about this last night in the chat. You know, when Eddie came into boxing, he said, you know, he kind of looked back and ridiculed, you know, the cards that they were putting on. He said it was Colin Lyons versus Lee Purdy. Well, I'm going to change all this. But now he's headlining with two kids that have never won a Southern Area title. It's a good point Rob's making.
Yeah, and it's you know, and I realised, and the only reason he's able to make that fight is the draw John Fisher, by the way, and Dave Allen is a ticket seller, obviously from Doncaster as well. He's always had a bit of a cult following, like the White Rhino and all that, hasn't he? And the Rhinettes or whatever they are. But what's next for Dave Allen? I don't know. Like I just think I think if you're looking at the two of them headlining, like I wonder now, like will Big John give Gad an apology? Like because he was very disparaging about the poor old Gad, wasn't he, for calling it down the line, saying that he thought that Dave Allen should have had his hand raised the first time, like everybody did. And now Dave Allen's gone in, taking it out of the judge's hands. You'd have to hope Big John would show a bit of humility now and apologize to the Gad. So anyway,
I have a hunch that the Gad probably called Johnny to check in and make sure he's doing okay, and that's going to start the healing. I think the Gad's going to be the bigger man. That's my odd hunch.
Maybe so, or else he could be a petty bastard. He could be like, "Yeah, boss, get in, yeah, fucking take that down the Blue Orchard, you fucking cunt." He could be like that either. Like, you don't know.
You know, it's amazing when he with like the whole thing, and then like even interviewing the uncle, like the Gad comes off as eminently more likable than any of the older generation of Fishers, like by a long shot.
So if you stay around long enough, you live long enough to find out that Dave Allen is the good guy in the end. You know that way. Dave Allen's the guy you're rooting for in the end. Like fucking hell.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I hope John Fisher's all right. Brutal knockout. He'll come again. Jay can't. I'm not sure he can either, really, to be honest with you. But we'll see. Dave Allen, they're probably like a David Adelaide, something like that. Would that be a good fight for him? Like,
who for Juve? Dave Allen, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd get done by Dave Adelaide, wouldn't he? He'd get done.
Yeah, you probably would. Like,
I think you got to look at guys like I think the time of winning titles and belts is past. I think you've just got to sell Dave as someone that he can draw a crowd, sell a ticket. He shouldn't be headlining events, but we can use him as a chief support. And if you can bring in someone like, I don't know, maybe maybe someone think. Right, so
Or
today's version of Jason
someone
Gavin, someone like
proposed.
that.
Yeah. Or
You know what I
someone
mean?
proposed the fight to Derek Chisora last night. They said, Derek, you're Dave Allen for your 50th fight, and Derek Chisora said, "Don't insult me, man." And in the next breath, he saw it.
Someone in the chat said the same thing, and I said, "Shut your filthy whore mouth."
In the next breath, he saw Sky Nicholson, and he said, "When are we going to grab dinner?" And she was like, "What? Don't come at me like that." He goes, "What? Don't you like dinner?" And she was like, "I like dinner on my own." And she stormed off. It was fucking amazing, man. We got to be honest, yeah.
Oh shit.
So yeah, I think we can move on. There's not really much more to fucking recap on that. That if that's the headliner, like, God help us with the undercard. Jesus Christ.
All right. No, there you go. So yeah, and any thoughts on Archie Sharp and again and Maxi Hughes?
Yeah, I like the two of those guys. I think that would be a right little domestic tear up because they're both at a similar level. I think Archie Sharp can punch a bit. Maxi Hughes can move you about. So I'm not sure who I favour in that. Like, I was going to say Archie Sharp is a little bit sharper. Excuse the pun. I think he's probably a little bit more heavy-handed. But Hughes can make him tired. Maybe stay on the outside with him, fiddle him around. He could make a decision. Both kind of likable fighters too. Them too. Is it for any kind of British title, or is it just a world version or something, or what is it for? Is it just a Saturday night card?
No. I just think what it is, Rob. You've got I think it's GSB or GMGB. I do apologise. I can't think who the promoters are, but it's a local outfit, and I think Max is a local kid. Archie's not been active. It gets them both out, and it's a good main event for the card of what it is. You got Terry Arthur as a chief support. It tells you everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's good dust up for that level.
Like, and it's a good domestic fight. Correct, absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be entertaining fight, I'd say, because they're both, like I said, I think they're both around the same level, so they should, and they both got different styles. So yeah, it should be like, I'm not gonna be fucking set me alarm for it or anything, but I'll definitely watch it if it's on. I shouldn't have to set me alarm for it, by the way. I should be on in the time zone, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you might be awake for it if you're around. Why not?
At this age, I don't know. You know that way.
But you know, Rob, on Saturday, I said it to Matty and Justin before you got on. What we saw last night was Eddie getting all his London kids out and home counties kids out. Next Saturday, it's GBM's opportunity to get their local kids out. So here's 50 tickets. Go and sell them. We'll get you on the show. And you've got about 10 fights, and they're all selling tickets. And the main event is Hughes and Archie Sharp, which we all agree is a good fight. It's worth watching. What it's for, I don't know.
100%.
What it tells us, I don't know. But it's still a good fight to watch.
But like, we're only starting to see the shows come back to Ireland after the Hodgkin feud. We're only starting to see the local shows come back to Ireland, but it's a big deal. Like, if it's in your city and that, like, it's a good night out. People want to see boxing, want to go see live sport. A lot of time, too often, like, you're watching on TV because all the big fights are in the States. So you get a chance to go see some local lads have a fight. Good Saturday night, few beers, few years going. You know, there could be good cards and good entertainment. So need kind of more of them as well for the younger. For everybody's not going to get the turkey shake, golden handshake either. You know, that way fellas have to fucking make a few quid. So
Saturday's all right for fighting.
Yeah, it's one of the best nights, actually.
Yeah. Let's see here. So let's jump on over, and this is probably the card that folks are most excited about, I imagine, for the weekend. But let's hit the undercard first. Let's see here. We're starting with where it starts looking interesting. Des, we got Aston Brown versus Reese Porter. Alois Yombi. That's what I knew that was going to be a struggle against David Jameson. Moises Saitoma against Mike Balogan, only defeated once. And then Nathaniel Collins against Lee McGregor. Honestly, that's a handful of fights that, at least on paper, don't look that bad.
No, it's a lovely card. This is the sort of card that Rob was just talking about. You know, it's a healthy card. It's got plenty of fights on it. Kids are getting out. This has got Frank Warren's fingerprints all over it. This is a typical Frank Warren card. And I'm looking at Alex Arthur. Is that our Alex Arthur's son making his debut? Does anyone know that at all in the chat?
Yeah, I have not a clue. I thought that thought crossed my mind when I saw it, though, Des.
Yeah, but going back to what you said, Nathaniel Collins, Lee McGregor is a really good fight. I like Lee McGregor. I think he's a really good kid. Nathaniel, it's a hard one for both of them. It's a fight with a lot of jeopardy. I'm going to go with Lee McGregor purely because I just like the way he's come through his last 3 fights, Lee McGregor. And there was signs against Isaac Lowe that he'd really started to understand his identity as a boxer, Lee McGregor. And I think Nathaniel Collins doesn't punch hard enough to put a dent in Lee McGregor. And I think it'll allow Lee McGregor to really find his personality, his identity as a fighter. I think Lee McGregor will look really well next week against Nathaniel Collins. But it's a good fight. It's got a lot of jeopardy. And if he's not at it, Nathaniel Collins will catch him out. Moses is Moses. I mean, for me, he's the best heavyweight prospect in the world. I'd put him in with anyone underneath European level, and that includes Fabio Wardley. I think Moses Itomo is a really good prospect. I think the time he's spent in the gym with Anthony Joshua will be invaluable for him as he moves on in his career. And I just think it's a biding time window now for Moses. I just think they're going to wait till the right fight comes along and he's going to go for it. I wouldn't put him straight in at top level yet. I'd keep him busy in sort of lukewarm water. But as soon as a British title comes vacant or a European title comes vacant, expect Moses to fight for it, and I expect him to win it. Alois Yoyombe, I think he's the kid that's he's a really big puncher. He's a cruiser.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I pronounced that.
I needed to hear that.
I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but
you had to be closer than me.
He had a lot of publicity because I think he was. I think he lost his debut and he went sort of 8 fights on a knockout streak. The one I watched recently against Birardi, he got a decision. I think it was good for him because he needs to get rounds in. We just don't know with these kids. We just don't know. But look, I'm looking at David Jameson now. He can punch as well to a level. I'm going to go with Yoyombe purely because he's a promoted kid and they've made a bit of a fuss about him. But I've seen him get caught out in terms of not being able to land this shot and his feet not getting him to places where it needs to be. Was there anyone else on that card you wanted to look at? Or was they the 2 or 3 you mentioned?
Let me see here. Collins and McGregor, Itoma, Balogan, Yoyombe against Jameson. Aston Brown against Reese Porter. This is a fight between 2 young, unbeaten guys for the Southern Area middleweight belt. One is 7-0, one is 5-0.
Tell me the names for them 2, please. Again, I was looking at Luke McCormack. Tell me them again, please, Messi.
Aston Brown and Reese Porter. So Aston Brown has a win over undefeated Fergus Quinn in his last fight, and that was, his first fight against someone with a real record. And Reese Porter, this is going to be his first fight against somebody with a real record. So it's, a little bit more about one than you do the other.
No, I can't pick out these 2 because I've not seen much of them. One's from Glasgow, and Aston is from they're both Scottish kids, obviously. Of course they are. Yeah. No, I can't tell you much about him. Shame I ain't got Andy on it. It'd know a bit more about him than I would. So no, I can't give you much insight on them 2, mate.
Hey, no worries. Justin, do you have any thoughts? I mean, the people want to know, is this undercard good enough for you to turn off the Andy Griffith and give it your full attention?
I mean, I'll watch Itoma, and the guy he's fighting is the guy that Gassiev knocked out like in the 1st or 2nd round.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of Gassiev's guys. But I agree with Dez. I think McGregor will win, and I'll watch the Itoma fight. I don't know how much of the undercard I'll watch underneath all that, but I'll definitely watch Itoma, and then I'll watch the McGregor fight.
Yeah, it's all going to be appetizer for a main event where I think the question is, how much does Josh Taylor have left? The measuring stick he's going in with, Ekow Essuman, who had a points loss to Harry Scarf a few fights back, but he's rebuilt himself well. Taylor testing the waters at 147 here. I think, Rob, what's interesting at this one is the fact that, like, Taylor, the good news is Taylor is officially not taking a year off between fights. This is only going to be 364 days since he fought Jack Catterall, so that's
Oh,
good
then.
news. Yeah, good news. But the question is, Essuman's not a huge puncher, but he's a physical welterweight, and I think the question is how is Taylor going to fare at the weight? Because I think Essuman's style plays into the good version of Josh Taylor's hands. And if he struggles with Essuman, considering what he's going to bring to the table, I think that's going to speak volumes, win, lose, or draw.
Well, when was the last time we saw the good version of Josh Taylor, though? That's what I'm trying to think. Like, I think it's probably the Ramirez fight, isn't it? Or maybe what was Regis or one of them? Like,
yeah, that
he
would have been
hasn't.
Ramirez, because that was the most recent. That was the fight before Catterall won.
Yeah, and you got to give Catterall his credit, because Catterall has a number, like, and is able to counter him. He's not able to deal with that style, but I think he stayed at 40 for way too long. He was dead at 40, probably fucking fighting Regis, like, but he's
Not to
not big
mention his
enough.
wars with Kathy Lee. They were hell.
Yeah, and not big, yeah, and not big. Not everybody on this side of the pond to get that one.
I'm glad you did,
This,
though, Rob. I'm glad
yeah,
you
yeah,
did.
it's too much fucking crossover culture for me to not to get that one. But I I don't know if he's on the slide or not. Like, but this will tell. Like, he hasn't looked good for a while. He looked like Theo bounced his fucking head around, didn't he? Like, and Catterall had it easier the second time than probably the first time. Like, so if I don't know if there's talks that he hasn't been living the life either outside the ring, that he's a bit of a messer outside, that he drinks a lot, and that's why he's not fit anymore. And like, again, in boxing, like in professional athletes in combat sport, like, that pays you back in cash in the ring. When you're not living a life outside it, like, you can't hide it, you can't mask it. You can get yourself into physical condition, all right, but that sharpness, that bit of endurance, the durability, all those things kind of go out the window if you're not living the life. So, he's had a brilliant career. Like, he was he was kind of an under recognized British guy, like, who probably achieved more than a lot of guys that were getting way more shine than him. He seems like a bit of a headbanger as well, Josh Taylor. Like, but maybe he's just. I think his expiry date might have passed. Like, the Ramirez fight's going back a few years now. Like, when he looked like he was at his absolute best. And the one thing you can't do in boxing is turn back the hands of time. Like, once you're on the slide, it's a one-way street. Like, so I want to write him off completely. Like, but maybe he has enough to get by Essuman. But I wouldn't be surprised if Essuman beats him. Like.
All right. Yeah, it's I just think it's, at the end of the day, Justin, I think the best version of Josh Taylor, the Taylor from 4 or 5 years ago ish, COVID's kind of a shitty fucking benchmark, but like that kind of Taylor who ran off 5-6 straight victories against undefeated fighters. That guy should wipe out Essuman, but we know that guy's gone, and that is, to me, is what makes this fight interesting.
Yeah, Rob's right. He stayed at 140. He way too long because he wanted to have that, the weight bully advantage, and it ended up biting him in the end. But the thing about Essuman is that he's a grinder, and he's not going to be easy. And he's tough, and he's got a good little ability about him. I think Rob made a good point. I could easily see Essuman winning this fight. I mean, they're definitely building this for Taylor to beat him, obviously, but Essuman is not like an easy knockover. Yeah, he lost to Harry Scarf, but I mean, he's always decent fights. He's got a good little engine about him. He's got a Des will know more about it than I do, but this is going to be a Taylor. I mean, he's probably, like you said, Ramirez. He's years past it. Who knows what he's been doing over the last year, getting ready for this fight. I think this fight is more about what Taylor has left than probably what Essuman can do to beat him. I think it's going to be more of Taylor has, if he makes this weight good and he's kind of, and he's still got a little bit more fire left in him, but that's another thing. How much does he still want it? But I'm going to lean towards, actually, if I had to choose, I'm going to think Essuman's going to beat him. I think he'll beat him in a close decision. I just don't think Taylor's got anything left. I just don't believe he has a lot left, and I think Essuman might want a little bit more.
That's interesting. Des, I tell you that for a guy like Ekow Essuman, like just a true a workhorse of the highest order in the sport, a guy who gives it his all when he comes out there. It would be amazing for him to get a signature win of his own. As we were talking about that kind of an underlying theme of the podcast this week. What are your feelings on this one?
Yeah, I think the lads have summed it up really well. Justin can't quite be certain. I think he went with Essuman after thinking about it, and Rob nailed it, saying, "I expect Josh to win, but I ain't going to be surprised if he don't, because we've seen enough of Ekow Essuman over 20-odd fights to know that he's very solid. He fights at a very good tempo. He doesn't go away. He's always coming forward." Now, Josh...
And he fights tight too. He doesn't. There's not often a lot of extra meat on his shots, and sometimes that means if you can keep a bit of range on him, he's a bit reluctant to throw because he wants to throw where he's comfortable. But he usually throws a pretty tight shot.
He's always there, and you got to make the comparison. He beat Chris Congo, who's a rangy, fast-handed, snappy puncher, and you have to assume that Josh Taylor's going to try and coming up to 147 from 140, and we've always been told by Shane McGuigan that Josh just can't do 147, and this was going back 5 years. Shane said this after the Prograis fight, and he said no, he just can't do 147. He's not built for it. He's not genetically wide enough. He ain't strong enough. It just doesn't suit his style and his dynamics. So we're now 5 years down the line. He's had 2 hard fights with Catterall. He had a really, really hard fight with Tio. And now after a year's inactivity, we've got to put him in there against a very solid, very consistent, very strong, solid welterweight. And now the only saving grace is that Ekow's not a thudding puncher. But I still think he'll set a good pace. I still think he'll walk Josh down, and I'm just not sure what's left in Josh's legs. I don't know if he can sit down in his punches anymore. I don't know if he can hit hard enough to push back a kid like Ekow. And I used the Congo fight as the barometer. I'm looking at the way Ekow got to Chris and kind of choked him a little bit and took him into deep waters. I'm wondering if he's going to do that with Josh Taylor. And I can't emphasize as well, it's the inactivity. Rob said something to me a couple of weeks ago when the Conor Benn thing was happening. He said, Chris Eubank has not been the same since he made weight for the Conor Benn first time round. And it got me thinking, I don't think Liam Smith's ever been the same, for about 4 or 5 fights, having to boil himself down to an unnatural weight that weren't good for him. Eubank's not been the same. This weight making over a period of time really hurts you. And Josh has been making an unnatural weight for a very long time. And he's been fighting really good kids and going 12 rounds with them. And in some cases, having really hard fights. And in one case, getting the shit kicked out of him. I'm not quite sure what we've got left now. And the inactivity doesn't help him. So the way I'm talking, I'm going to have to go with Ekow on a point. Purely because I think Josh will struggle with the 7 pounds extra against a very solid, durable, tough kid. And that word tough don't get said enough in boxing. Ekow's really tough, So, yeah, I was almost leaning on the side of what Rob said. I expect Josh to win, but I won't be surprised. I'm now saying this. I expect Ekow to win, But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Josh get away with it. But I still think Ekow's going to beat him.
Yeah, and Ekow's sitting at he's paying about 5-2 right now. So that's interesting. Sharp is paying more than 3-1. What would that be? It would be 16-5. So a couple of interesting numbers out there to take a look at. It's interesting there's no action on Leo versus Kameda. See if that pops up here at some point in time. But yeah, and I guess an interesting question is after how good, Rob, does Josh Taylor have to look for him to be immediately back in the world title conversation in what is a pretty lackluster welterweight division? Roberto?
Yeah, I think he's right back in there with a win. Like I think he's still got some kind of a drawing power because of his name. I do think he's on the slide. I don't think he's probably going to recapture a world title, but he can be in the other side of a fight for sure. Like he's going to be an opponent for someone. He get somebody on the come up or something like that. But we'll see what he get. But I haven't thought Josh Taylor's looked very good since the Ramirez fight. Don't know if it's inactivity. The Cattrall loss, was that a psychological thing? The Teo loss, that didn't do him any good. He took heavy punishment and that. So we'll have to see where he's at. Like, but in terms of his drawing ability, he's always he'll sell a fight in that as well because he's fucking maybe not sell it out as much as he's never been a massive commercial draw in Scotland. I don't think he's had the whole Scotland unite behind him kind of the way like the Welsh were with Calzaghe or whatever. He wasn't like the people's champion for Scotland or whatever. Like, but
yeah, they're finicky pricks.
So I don't know. I think he definitely has appeal in terms of a fight. You might even see a third Cattrall fight down the line that nobody would want to see at this stage, but you don't know. Like you don't know. You have to see. He could turn up and prove me wrong on Saturday, walk through this guy like and announce himself, get himself into another big fight. He'd surely be wanting some of the money that's getting thrown around now, like on some of these cards. He want to put himself in the mix for that. Surely, like you'd have to think that's why he's still hanging about. But he was a very, very good fighter. I don't want to talk about him like as if he's fucking dead or anything. Like he was a very good fighter on his day. But I haven't seen him look good in a while, and I wouldn't be that optimistic that he can turn it back on to what he used to be, because he's a high pressure fighter too, Josh Taylor. So when that leaves him a little bit, that little bit of quickness, that little bit of kind of aggression. When that's kind of gone out of him,
reflexes, good reflexes, and when that goes, that's your element of surprise. You're not the puncher you once were when you're not catching people off guard.
Yeah, I just think it's like he's doing everything a little bit less effectively than he was a couple of years ago, and that will play out in the ring. But we'll see.
It's a tough division as well, Matty. The domestic is a tough division. We've got some really intense kids that are really good for the weight. Pierce O'Leary, Donovan, Crocker, Connor Walker, and we've just seen Cattrall and Harlem Eubank. They've signed their fight. Domestically, it's a very tough crowd for Josh to get through.
Well, yeah, I mean, and what's messed up is that if Josh wins, he's probably right back in a world title conversation, at least, and he might be able to skip all that. But unfortunately, even if Ekow Essuman wins, he's probably left just fighting the domestic fights. And honestly, the biggest money fight for him out there, if he beats Taylor, might be a rematch against Scarf.
Well, Ekow Essuman, I would imagine Frank Warren's. I don't know what Frank's relationship's like with Ekow, but beneficially, economically, if Josh Taylor wins, it opens a lot of doors because of his name. But Ekow's
you could see Taylor walking
pro.
straight to the winner of Crocker and
exactly,
too, couldn't you?
Yeah, and that sells. That sells as well. Yeah, that really sells. Yeah.
Yep.
Right on. Well, this was a tidy 2.5 hours today, and and we'll be back next week. We have a lot. Obviously, we spent far more on the previews than we did on the review, and we gave plenty of time to Dave Allen. Though, Dave, you enjoy your moment. That's from all the nutters. But it's been a really good time with everybody in there. I would very much like to thank Jasmine Carey for throwing a $2.49 super chat in there. Thank you for helping to keep the lights on in here. And remember, if you want to join the fun, patreon.com/boxing asylum. But we'll be back here next week with you. And I'd like to thank Justin, Dez, and Rob Kelly for being a part of this. I've been your host, Matt DiGianardo. Folks, have a great week ahead. We'll see you next Sunday.
We'll never forget.
Golly, that's good at me.
Go to and move! We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking swank that can fight me.
I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Rumpo fucking Steltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7 year ain't. 7 year ain't. I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love boxing sounds, as simple as that.